almost have world politics solved. We're going to change this from Bossier Watch to Team World Police Bossier Watch edition.
Well, we've got to transition, as people in the other sex communities would say, maybe. But look, no, like what I was saying. So, like the European Union has done, they're like going all anti-US. They are loading up on China. They're going big China. Well, Russia and the European Union are not on the same page. I mean, so how is Russia and the European Union going to both be partners of China? It ain't happening. It ain't happening.
Yeah,
So
this is an
the
interesting
Democrat,
chess game.
the Democrats are going to be able to say, "Hey, well, this is Russian collusion 2.0," except we don't have to fake it.
Right, yeah. They're literally having the meeting, so, all right, so let me make sure that we're live here. Yes, I got my Facebook notification. I got my YouTube notification. Did you get a Twitter notification?
I don't know.
Or
Haven't looked.
Twitter, X, whatever. I still call it
Yes,
Twitter.
I got a notification. Perhaps I should share it on Twitter. Maybe someone else on Twitter might watch
Oh,
it.
when I search for Twitter now on my iPhone, it doesn't find it. I have to search for X. Oh, look. Bossier Watch is live. Oh, that's cute. Bossier Watch is live. I just saw where Duke reposted our live post. Do we want to join it with a Q&A? That's kind of interesting. I'm going to join and see what that's about.
Yeah, entertaining. Yeah, so I shared it.
Let
I
me
can hear
mute that down.
I can hear myself talking.
Yeah, that was me on the phone. So,
Should I ask myself a question?
is there
So, Duke,
anybody in there?
what do you think about Rex's haircut?
What
But how would you
haircut?
know? He's always wearing that hat. You can't even tell.
I quit wearing a hat for like 10 years, and then I started wearing hats again. I don't know.
Yeah, I
All
know.
right,
Anyway,
we're kind of rambling for a few minutes, but we've got a couple of guests scheduled. One of them might not be able to make it, so we'll see. But if he does, we'll bring him in here in a minute. So what are we going to talk about? I've kind of got it listed up there, but what's
well, we
give,
were having a healthy debate before we went live about all these dadgum lawyers. And when I'm saying it, I'm talking about federal judges and the
right?
stupid crap they're doing to Trump and right now. I mean, this
Well,
lawfare and this crap, I am freaking sick of these damn lawyers.
but look,
These
let me.
ass hats are twisting up everybody in the whole damn country.
But look, it's been. Let me think of the way to say this and keep it PG-13. It's been screwed up for so. It's like when Trump was elected in 2016. It's been screwed up for so long. There is no way he can't fix it in 4 years. If everything was going the right way, he couldn't fix all of this in 4 years. So I think what he's doing, I know it's what he's doing, is they're trying to unscramble everything that they can. Of course, the other side is going to use whatever weapons they can against him, which is not really the news media anymore because nobody cares about the news media. And Trump won decidedly. So now they're going to use lawfare, which is a legal means to do it. Look, I got to tell you, we all used to gripe about Obama and his executive orders. Well, like Trump's done like 4 trillion executive orders. I don't know. I've lost count now. So I'm just
Trump,
saying,
he hadn't done as many executive orders as any one of the previous presidents before him.
oh, he holds press conferences. I've counted more in one press conference than half the other presidents have done. But in all seriousness, he's done a lot of executive orders, which we all on the right complained extensively about with Obama and the whole 9 yards. So I'm just saying the tables have turned. And I think Trump is trying to unscramble all this, and it's just going to be a cluster for a short while.
Well, he's only got 4 freaking years. He better tighten up and get it done. They stole the first 4 years from him. They stole the second 4 years from him. through those fraudulent machines and through fraudulent technology and using tech guys like you to steal the election. But
Anyway.
he's got less than 4 years now to get everything done. I mean, because they're going to try to steal it again, and
Oh,
and
but he's
and
already joking around about he may run for a third term. What do you think about that? Let me ask you. If Trump, now maybe he's kidding, but maybe he's not. If Trump ran for a third term, what would you say? Should the lawsuits be
okay,
filed, or should he be allowed to do it?
who who is the best at jacking with people?
Oh,
Who's the
he
best president ever at jacking people?
he is the most goldenly orange-haired troll in the history of the world.
That's right. That's right. He knows you can't do that. I mean, he's gotten his 2 terms. He's going to respect term limits. Now, as for Bossier City and some of those guys, I see them coming down the tracks in the future. But you know,
Oh.
probably the tracks right there at Shed Road Crossing that they had closed down, so that track will be open.
Well, July can't
Squirrel.
get here fast enough yet, and we'll see how the new crew is going to do. All right. So
Hey,
we've been jibber jabbering here. Go ahead.
Joey Herman says, Duke, are you in Miami? Yes, I am
We had.
sporting. I am sporting Bad Boys Miami Vice version. That's what's happening
Ooh,
here.
interesting. All right. So it looks like Mr. Fleming has arrived. He is in the green room. So let me switch screens. Let's see if we can do an audio check and see if this works. Here we go. Hold on. Howdy, Mr.
Testing.
John.
Hey. Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Hey,
Glad to have you.
John,
How you doing?
you are live, and there's a few folks already in here, and we've been jibber jabbering a little bit. I have been griping and complaining about those. See, I shouldn't use the terminology that I'll normally use, but I'm just going to go on and do it because I know you and you're a friend and you won't be offended. Those damn lawyers, and especially the ones in robes in D.C. I am
Why would
about
I
to.
be offended? I'm not a lawyer, not even close.
I don't even have any hair left in my head, and they're about to make me want to just scream bloody murder.
If I remember correctly, Mr. Fleming is a former doctor. Well, I guess you're still a doctor technically. Is that correct? You actually try to fix people and fix things.
Well, I actually practice medicine. I'm almost complete. I've got 6 months left on our board certification and recertification. It's a 3-year process. I've got 6 months left to be recertified for another 10 years. So, in fact, when I speak to groups, I'll often say, well, I still have a medical practice, it still operates, and I still practice from time to time. And if you happen to have a sore throat or tummy ache, I can accept most any form of payment.
Oh,
Including digital currency.
Yeah, right.
so as y'all can see, a potential future senator, he is hip with Bitcoin and blockchain. He's up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the first state to accept anything in the way of cryptocurrency for anything, and we accept payment for wildlife and fisheries fees such as hunting and fishing licenses, and we're happy to accept more, whatever people would like to do. Uh, we don't receive it in crypto because we don't store or invest in crypto yet, but when it gets to us, it's converted automatically to dollars. But we try to be user friendly and make it easy for someone who wants to use their crypto account.
Now that's interesting. So I can renew my fishing license and hunting license with cryptocurrency. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, Bitcoin, Coinbase, I think is the other one.
Right.
So yes, that can be done.
Oh, holy shamoly! I learned so I had no idea, and we're the first ones. That's amazing.
Yes, yes, we are the first. We're the first in several things through Treasury. Um, Y'all may have heard we launched a K through 12 transparency website. for both public and charter schools across the state. And other states have done this, but the website that provides this service, third party, tells us that ours is the most complete of any state in the union. It provides everything all the way down to the cents, everything from total overhead to all contracts, who the contracts are with, um, payroll, administrative cost, uh, you know, superintendents, what they get paid, teachers, principals, uh, and if you buy Uber Eats or purchase a massage with state funds, that goes on this website, and it is on this website.
It's nice to be
Wow.
first in something and not last in something.
Right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no
Well,
kidding.
I think the first step towards slashing cost is transparency. I think once, and you see this with Doge in Washington. When you begin to hear these really just egregious situations, somebody who's 150 years old getting a Social Security check. When you hear these things, people want action. They want it immediately.
Yeah, even if it's just one person that's 150 years old and still receiving it, that's too much. I mean, that means something's wrong with the system.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's bogus. Money is theoretically going to someone, but not the right person. And that's true of your state government in Baton Rouge. We have a lot of visibility on how transactions occur. And as a result of that, we're using this website, this K through 12 education website, transparency website. It's actually a button on our regular website, treasury.la.gov. And all you have to do is go to our website, and then you can explore this. And then we're going to add to it the appropriations, where as appropriations are passed, you'll be able to see who the money's going to, if it's an NGO, a non governmental organization, which is where I think most of the abuse and waste occurs. You'll be able to see that. We believe that there are people in the background who are connected to a number of these appropriations, some of them probably elected officials, and money is transferred to them, and then from them on to other people. And we don't have the enforcement power to investigate those things, but we can certainly make it transparent, and hopefully others will research that and investigate.
Well, John, you're no stranger to DC and the swamp. I mean, you spent some time up there, both as the congressman of the fourth district and represented Northwest Louisiana well. I would say. I mean, you were one of my favorites, probably my favorite. And you then served in the Trump administration, and you're trying to go back up there again. And from your perspective, from having been in the trenches up there and looking at what's happening today, I mean, me as just a small business guy, I know you are as well and have been. Looking at how the swamp is rejecting what Trump's trying to do and course correct for the country, which is beneficial to everybody. I mean, I'm sure you're eager and chomping at the bits to get up there in the fight.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on what you're seeing?
Well, um, I was one of the 9 founders of the House Freedom Caucus, and a lot of people really wonder why we even created this, and it's still active today. It wasn't the Democrats that drove us to do this, it was Republicans. Because what we saw was a uni-party that was linked into the deep state, so that there is a certain, let us say, inertia in Washington that ultimately uh, moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans should get together and solve our problems. And that those of us who are alarmed at what we see should keep our mouths shut. And that was happening when Speaker Boehner was the speaker. We're talking about like 2010 through about 2015. He would retaliate against members who would call out things that we would see that we go, how are we any different than Barack Obama or Nancy Pelosi? Because we're cooperating with these things. This Iranian deal, where we guaranteed they would, in fact, we flew cash to them, which was not known at the time or never agreed to by Congress, but then also allow them to purify uranium to the point that they could have a bomb. This whole deal made no sense to us, and why would we go along with it? So we really got tired of being retaliated against by our leadership, and that led to us forming this group of 9 founding members, including Mark Meadows, Ron DeSantis, Jim Jordan, and others. And ultimately, we pushed Boehner out. But there is a huge inertia, even today, that there's a fealty to the existing way things are done, that the establishment Republicans, establishment Democrats are really the same. They're all really in that same pool. But what is not understood is that there's a constant pull in the direction of leftism, and it's pulling everybody that way. And so without a conservative anchor, such as the Freedom Caucus, we've been continuing to do that. And I think that ultimately led to Donald Trump being elected and then being reelected, because the American people are now seeing this for themselves. They see the deep state. They see what's happened in the FBI. They see what's happened in the IRS. Remember, Lois Lerner was preventing people, these Tea Party groups, from getting a tax-free status, and many of them broke up as a result of that. Well, she was deliberately defying the law, and it was a criminal act. However, when it was pursued by members of Congress, the director of the FBI just let her destroy the material, and they retired her, and nothing ever happened to her. There was no price to pay. So I led the effort to impeach the head of the FBI, and believe me, I knew I was going to get audited as a result of that. Somehow I didn't. I don't know how I slipped out without getting that, but I couldn't get Republicans to get behind that. And then subsequently, we see what happened, what was done with Lawfare to President Trump. When you let this stuff go uncontrolled, then you're just going to get more of it. And if they can do this to the president or former president of the United States, what chance do we have?
That's very true. You know, a lot of people say, well, that's illegal. How can they get by with that? And the simple answer is, well, either somebody has to be willing to prosecute, and I hate to say it, but we've seen that here in our own local Bossier Parish on occasion, or you have to be willing to file a lawsuit, which is not inexpensive for the average citizen to do, and that's how they get by with it. It's just what you described. They keep letting them get in the cookie jar, and so they keep getting cookies.
Yeah, absolutely. Law enforcement and certainly attorney generals, those lawyers who are in the enforcement side of things, including state attorney generals, they have unlimited resources, and they have huge discretion as to who they go after and why. And if they do it on the basis of political perspective, political viewpoints, then if you're in the wrong party, if you've got the wrong perspective, they will go after you. And so we see this happening, and it's a dangerous time. Like I say, I think there were innocent people who've been prosecuted, men and women around President Trump, some of whom went to jail. And then we have the J6 prisoners who, thank goodness, were pardoned. But had President Trump not been elected, they would not have been pardoned. And we know that we just learned that there were 26 contract workers from the FBI, people I should say paid informants. They were most likely people who the FBI had something on them, and in order to pay back, maybe to reduce their sentence or whatever, and probably get paid, they were dispersed in the crowd on January 6th, and many of them actually got inside the building. So we're learning these things, but too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's not. It's all true. It's all on the record.
Yeah.
Well, it's always black helicopters, and we're the ones wearing the tinfoil hats until you find out. But you find out after the fact, and it's too late to prosecute or to do anything. And I think people are getting absolutely sick and tired of that, and they're wanting action and they're wanting something done, only for their politicians. And then and I'm on a rail about the lawyers and the judges right now because they seem to be the ones that are enabling it. And so
Right.
I got a question sent to me, John, that somebody wanted me to ask you, and I know that there has been some bills that have been being put forward about restricting NGOs and or limiting NGOs from getting state and federal monies, and they wanted to know if that was something that you'd be in favor of or where you stood on that topic.
Yeah, Duke, I'm very much in favor of that. After what I've witnessed over the past year, um, you know, someone asked Dillinger, the famous bank robber, why he robbed banks, and his answer was, "That's where the money is," and that's what we're seeing with appropriations and CEAs, money, millions of dollars, some of them connected to state senators and reps multiple times. That there's obviously some inside and self-dealing type stuff that's going on, but see, we're not in a position to prove it or even to report it. Now, there is an auditor, but again, the auditor can only sample information. It's very difficult for them to dig deep into all of these things. So there is a bill. Heather Cloud has a bill that she's still working on that would at least create transparency on NGOs. That when the money is appropriated, that we know better about who's getting it and why, how much it is, and who's the state rep or senator who actually saw to it that they got this. You see, when we get the appropriations bill language, we have to go to Google try to figure out who's getting the money, and
Wow.
oftentimes we can't even figure out intent. We don't necessarily know exactly what part of that entity is getting it, and for what purpose. And then we're supposed to create a contract called a CEA, a Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, which holds them accountable for at least showing us some receipts on what they're spending the money on. I'll give you an example. There was one organization, it's actually a church, that got a $300,000 CEA. And according to our plan, they get the first half of it, 150,000 up front, and then they only get the second half when they provide receipts for the first half. I think that's pretty liberal. So anyway, on the second half, they said, the original intent was that the 100,000 would be for the food, and the 50,000 in that first chunk, the 50,000 would be for payroll. But on the second half, they came back to us and said, "Look, we need to reverse that. We need to have 100,000 for the payroll and 50,000 for the food." And we go, "Of course, we can't do that. That's absurd." But you have to wonder, where is that money really going? Does it really go to purchases in a grocery store? We get receipts, maybe. We don't always get those, but can we prove these receipts are real and not bogus or whatever? We have no mechanism to do that, and unless there's a deep audit on one of these entities, no one ever knows. So it's very loose and very non-transparent. And I believe that accountability begins with transparency, as it now is with our public school and charter school system. And I think the next thing is in our appropriations, particularly with our NGOs, because what you're really doing is you're deputizing private entities, supposedly nonprofits, to do government work. Well, why do you need to do that? Usually the NGO is coming to you. They've created their own entity, and it's supposed to be for some good and useful purpose. But if behind that, it's really just a camouflage of just a stream of cash that's going to various people, that can be done very easily without much accountability.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I think in the past, and I'm just going to say decades past, we as the electorate have mostly relied on our elected officials to, look after our tax funds and make sure that it's right, or make sure it's spent or appropriated the correct way and all that. The problem is, in a lot of cases, unfortunately, we can't trust a lot of our elected officials. And so we need this transparency. Unfortunately, we live in the information age, and we see it even on the federal level with what Elon's doing and this whole,
Right.
Doge movement, whatever, to figure out what's going on at the federal level. And look, Duke and I have even joked about setting up one for Bossier and doing a website. But I think trying to get some of the financials from the local politicians who aren't the biggest fans of ours, that may be a challenge in and of itself. But how do you even know where to look for where this money is being spent or appropriated? How do you just randomly go through fiscal
Well,
numbers or what?
well, remember that the elected members themselves who actually appropriate this money, they have a built-in conflict of interest because they want to bring the money back, which will to their local towns, cities, and so forth, and that makes them look good. So therefore, they get reelected, and that's true of Congress as well. When I was in my first term in Congress, we had a very broad policy on earmarks. That's what they're called in Congress. And you've heard about the bridge to nowhere. You may have heard about military runway costing hundreds of millions of dollars built in a city where there's no military aircraft. Military runway in a city with no military aircraft. Things of that sort that bring money and bring jobs and so forth. So that happens anytime you have an elected body. So there's a built-in conflict of interest. And that's not to say that every appropriation is bad. It's not.
Right.
But that's the whole problem. You mix in the bad with the good. And in fact, there's something called airdrop earmarks, which are the earmarks dropped in at the night before. So then when the members vote, remember how members get this big bill dropped on them at the last minute and they don't have time to read it? Well, by definition, I'm a no. If I don't know everything that's in it, I'm a no. But many times members will vote for it and they have no idea what some of the ugly stuff that's in it. That's why earmarks were banned entirely for a period of time in Washington. They've been brought back partially. So to your point, Rex, oftentimes it's camouflage. They create such vague language. They might say, and again, I'm talking about say a governmental appropriation here, not an NGO, but let's say Bossier City. Bossier City, say, gets $5 million to help their water system, and that's it. That's all you know. Well, what's it going to do for the water system? Is it going to replace it? Is it going to upgrade it? These kind of things. And that's supposed to be in the cooperative endeavor agreement, but often it isn't. So I remember an NGO one that was to construct a building for a church that would house men with addictions. I guess that was part of the church mission, was to help men who had addictions. But then the question is, well, if it's a church, it's a not-for-profit. Why aren't donations funding this? Why is the government doing this? If the government sees that there's a need to treat more men for addiction, shouldn't the government be building that and creating its own programs? So you see the problems, because once those dollars get into the NGO, they're gone forever. Other than the receipts we're supposed to get, and many times we don't get them, we'll expend half the money, and then we'll say, okay, we'll give you the other half when you give us receipts for the first half, and we don't get them. But still, we've lost the first half. That money's gone forever. We do turn them over to collections, but oftentimes, it's lost to the wind. So this is an area of abuse. Now, is it a lot of dollars? Well, compared to DPS, Department of Public Safety, or LDH, the Louisiana Health Department, probably not. And so, again, if you're like Dillinger, you want to go where the money is. You want to look at the big budgets, the billion-dollar budgets, and there's very little transparency in those. And I think we really need to take a look at them.
Well, I can give you an example, of like an NGO. Like I'm passionate about waterfowl hunting. Ducks is just it's a passion of mine, and I can remember back in I think it was the late '90s. I went to a Louisiana Waterfowl Commission meeting, and Robert Helm. You may remember Robert Helm, John, from years ago. He was a commissioner, and he asked one of the waterfowl, conservation organizations for a report of every dollar that Louisiana has given to them and what they have done with it, in the Prairie Canadas to promote waterfowl that would migrate to Louisiana. To which they responded that they would give a report. And to this day, to my knowledge, they have still not given that report, to where every acre of conserved land that was said to be used from those dollars from Louisiana has still not been given. And then I think it was, when was it, Rex? Maybe 3-4 years ago, when the legislature was trying to change the way the funding for wildlife and fisheries was done. I went down and testified in the committee, and I pointed out the fact that still to this day, Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries can't say or report where every dollar has been spent. I want to see what acreage. If they say they've conserved 1 million acres and we've sent money to conserve that 1 million acres, I want to see where every 1 million acres, I want to see where every single acre is.
Right.
And that can't be produced. And it seems like to me, in both state and the federal government, I think that's what's trying to happen. And I'm confident that's what you're going to do when you get up there, is try to shore up and strengthen the oversight. And I hate to say this, but it's almost like we don't commit enough resources to oversight or investigating our government. We shouldn't have to, but the reality is we do. But we got to commit more to that.
Well, the problem is, you can tell in oversight is you can invest so much in the way of resources into oversight that whatever you save from reduced waste actually goes into oversight. So that's why you have to have a mechanism that makes sense, that is cost effective, but at the same time, it reduces. You're never going to get rid of waste. You're never going to get rid of theft and things like that, but you want to push it down to a minimum. And this is true, as you know, in the private sector. You're never going to get zero shrink in a grocery store or convenience store or subway store. There's just going to be some theft, but you want it down to a manageable level without having the kind of resources that are deployed that are just so expensive it's not worth it. So that's why it should, in my view, should begin with deputizing citizens. And how do you do that? Transparency. If you can go on a website, like again the school website, where we see public dollars being spent on Uber Eats, on trips to Ruth's Chris, massages, parking tickets, car payments. When you see that, the news gets hold of it, and they have. WDSU is actually going to do something during sweeps on this website. They've picked up on it, and they're on to some stuff that's happening there. And so, once you get citizens involved and third parties and media involved, then what happens is people either stop doing it or they go underground. And that's the reason why part of our package is to engage with the legislative auditor to make sure that every school throughout the state, all 120, are audited at least once every 5 years. Ultimately, one way or another, in theory, we're going to catch people who are if people go in and let's say they claim that $100,000 was spent on textbooks, and we find out that no, it was spent on pizzas and massages and Ruth's Chris. Well, then somebody's going to go to jail for that. It may take several years to find it. So you got to have these backup mechanisms. You can't just stop with transparency. But transparency, I can tell you that the school system, the Department of Education, in fact, was very, very resistant to us launching this website. But they had no choice because it was passed into law. And you see now why they didn't want this, because they knew we were going to find stuff, and indeed we are.
So I've got a question for you. You mentioned WDSU, and we're talking about efficiency and all that. So let me lead into this. I think it was in your December interview, I think it was called Hot Takes or whatever, where you announced your Senate campaign. You said, and I'm going to use your actual quote because I think it's been misquoted a little bit, but you said, and I think I'm quoting you accurately, said, people are at home, they're drawing a paycheck, but they're not really working. All that needs to be changed. And as you know, we've got Doge coming.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that? Did you mean that people that work from home aren't really working, or what did you actually mean by that?
No. That was not a criticism of remote work at all. What we're talking about is there are many benefits based on income or lack of income. Everything from Medicaid to SNAP, unemployment benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when COVID came, all of this was liberalized so that if you were entitled to one program, you were entitled to all of them. Plus, you got stimulus checks. And what we found was those of us who employ people, like I do in Subway, what we noticed is that even when the pandemic was pretty much coming to a close, we were having great difficulty getting people to come back to work. And what we discovered was that people have adjusted their lifestyles where they could live on less. They also found gig employment, that's a cash-based employment, kind of a black market employment. So there are a lot of people who could put all of these benefits that are stacked on top of each other, and as I say, these extra things that they can, wash your car, and make a few bucks doing that, or they can do drywalling or cut grass or whatever, and it's all a cash economy. Some of these people, statistics showed us, were living a lifestyle that might be equivalent to $80,000 a year in income when you consider they're not paying tax on it, and somebody making $100,000 may be paying as much as $20,000 in taxes. And so as the pandemic resolved, many of these people were still playing this game, and a lot of these benefits were not going away up to and including the school loans, paying back of school loans. And only now are people being required to start paying back their school loans. So that's what I was referring to. But to be more pointed, today, I would say, depending on the state, 30 or 40% of people in that state get free health care through Medicaid, and that's paid for by the taxpayers. That's primarily because of Medicaid expansion that came from Obamacare. And and so again, you don't have to get a job in order to have health care. You can get it just by being poor. And that's a big problem. See, the Medicaid program was originally created to cover young women with babies, with children, young children. And it got expanded over the years. And then under Obamacare, it was expanded to anybody who might qualify under income requirements. And that means there are a lot of healthy young men who are working age and quite capable who are getting free benefits and getting free health care. And those of us who work are paying for this, taxpayers especially.
Yeah. So I got a question to bring it down a little bit because this is really basic, more basic than anything. How does a North Louisiana guy that talks like you and I able to fit in with those folks south of I-10? I mean, you got all them people to vote for you down there for your office that you're in now. How was you able to convince them? I'm just curious.
Well, first of all, I've never accepted the apparent reality that people in South Louisiana will not vote for people in North Louisiana, that I-10 line exists. I never fully accepted that. As you know, I ran for Senate previously in 2016, and John Kennedy, of course, won that race. But remember, he was a statewide elected official for 17 years and had run for Senate 3 times. So he had a far more exposure to elections and to the people than I did, coming from North Louisiana in the 4th District. So I felt these kind of regional lines. I don't think maybe they existed previously. Perhaps they did, but for whatever reason, I don't think they exist the way. I think people are much more ideological than they are regional in their thinking. So I think there has been some evolution. I will say that I'm the first person from North Louisiana to win a statewide election as a Republican. There have been many who've done it as Democrats. I wouldn't say many. There have been some, and there's some of those who converted to Republican. But in looking through the books, I've been unable to find anybody who, as a Republican, the first time they're running for statewide election, was elected as a Republican and didn't convert from being a Democrat. And as you may recall, I won by 65% of vote, the same as Liz Murrill and Nancy Landry. So I think that barrier has been broken. Is it real? Maybe. Or maybe it's just a psychological one. But again, I think people identify with me who really identify with me ideologically, just like I think you and I agree ideologically as well. And you know that, for instance, in Acadiana, people are very conservative, very pro-life, very religious, and I think increasingly that's truer even in Baton Rouge. New Orleans, not as much, but there are pockets in New Orleans as well. So I think our state is becoming ideologically strongly conservative, even in areas that traditionally have been very liberal. And I don't think some of the other barriers that have separated us, such as pro-life and abortion, and such as gay, I don't think those politics are nearly what they were maybe a decade ago. And we pretty much all, view people as people, and we understand that we represent everyone, and that people have a freedom to make certain choices in life. And as a result of that, for instance, we tolerate homosexuality a lot more as a society than we once did, for sure. But also, we've pretty much closed down all the abortion clinics in this state. If there's any still open, I'm not aware of it. I do think the Dobbs decision pretty much ended that. Now, having said that, most abortions today are chemical abortions. They're done at home with Plan B or one of those type of pills. So there's been a technology change as well that I think has taken away the need for later term abortions. But this is just the fast moving world of technology and culture and all of that that's changing. So there may be a little more amalgamation, if you will, between North Louisiana and South Louisiana when it comes to a lot of these issues that were very pressing maybe 10 or 20 years ago.
So, speaking of ideologies, let's shift gears back to the Senate race. What separates you? I mean, we all have our theories of Bill Cassidy, but what separates you from, because we assume he's going to run for reelection, what separates you ideologically from your opponent in this Senate race? Why should I vote for John Fleming?
Right. Well, let's go back to our freshman year entering Congress. We entered together. We were around each other a lot. We were friends, not close friends, but we all got along in our delegation. And from the beginning, I just didn't feel like he viewed the world the way I do. I was very concerned about our budgets, our deficits, our national debt that expanded to $11 trillion from George Washington to George Bush 43. And then by the time, if you fast forward that to today, it's more than triple that since then. So the doubling times are getting faster and faster. The annual deficit was $400 billion when I was in Congress. Today it's maybe going on $3 trillion. So those kind of things concern me. And also, I didn't see politics as any real future in terms of moving up the ladder, becoming a chairman of a committee or this or that. That to me was not relevant. What was relevant is, I felt like I was a citizen representative, and I was there to do a job and to make sure that I anchored conservatism and America First policies. We didn't call it that then, but that's what it was. And he, on the other hand, saw the world differently. I could tell that he felt like government could really solve problems, and that he was on the move way up. He was favored by leadership. They gave him choice committee assignments, whereas they tried to redistrict me out of my congressional district. Why? Because I would vote against rules. I'd vote against the key bills that they wanted to support because I thought that they were cooperating way too much with Obama and with Pelosi. So I saw from the beginning we were very different people, but I did notice from the outside a lot of people just didn't see much difference. I remember we both spoke to a Tea Party group down in Baton Rouge, and they were all consumed by him. They thought the things that he said was fantastic, and I'm going, I can't believe that you think what he's saying makes a lot of sense from a Tea Party perspective. But they weren't. So that's why I was surprised and really shocked that when I announced that I was running against him and I began to travel around the state, people would tell me it's not just about he voted to convict Trump. It's about many things that he doesn't listen to us. He doesn't respond to us. He says one thing and does something else. And I think what happened was what I was seeing in him is very subtle, but came out over time when he became more comfortable that he could get reelected at doing more things that maybe did not align with conservative people in Louisiana. And so I go, well, it took them a while to figure out the differences, but boy, did they really figure it out. I'm learning stuff every day that people are telling me. It's obvious that he pals with the Democrats up there, that he probably feels much more comfortable with them. And he's probably, in a sense, we hate using this term too much, but drank the Kool-Aid up there. That there's a certain, I should say, a certain truth or reality, which is not true or realistic at all, that people believe in Washington. And you're expected to accept it and believe it and promote it, when in fact, you're just in a little cocoon and you don't really see what's going on in the rest of the world. And I just rejected that outright. To me, it's what does somebody from Oakdale or Bossier City or Lafayette think? Elm Grove, what do they think? Not what some politician up in Washington thinks, or some lobbyist or someone like that. So I think that our careers progressively deviated over time. I got involved, was one of the founding members of the House Freedom Caucus, which bucked leadership. He, on the other hand, was celebrated by the leadership and pushed on. And you might think that if the Republican leadership was high on him, obviously he was very conservative, but just the opposite is true because of what I said before. We have like a uni-party, this establishment Republicans, Democrats, they really are locked at the hip and they don't want to give that up. They believe that we can return to the way things were 30 years ago, where we're all really very close together and only a few fringes on each end, when in fact, that's not what's going on. What we have is Democrats are far more fringe out there, socialistic and so forth. And then you have Republicans, some who are moderate, but more and more they're moving even further to the right in a more conservative direction. And there's just a big gap now in between. And I think he's one of the few that's left sort of in the middle or even a little bit aligned towards Democrats. And that's where his decision to vote to convict Trump, he just totally misled himself, thinking that his career was going to end and we would never hear. He would have never done that. No sane person would have ever voted to convict somebody, a president from their own party, if they thought they ever had a chance of being elected again. And it was a total miscalculation because he misunderstood how the people think, which is the reason why he's so rejected in Louisiana. His approvals are around 27%,
Wow.
and he's upside down. And
Yeah,
there have been 3 polls, and in all 3 polls, he ultimately loses to anybody who's a conservative Republican, including and especially me.
so in the closed primary, all the polling shows he's going to get his teeth kicked in.
Yes. Now he's got $7.5 million, and maybe he can change minds with that. I don't know. But look, the money that you raise for campaigns has basically 2 purposes. One is to build your name ID, which is important. People don't like to vote for somebody they don't know who they are. If your name is not recognizable, chances are they're going to vote for somebody else. We used to laugh when I was running against John Kennedy in 2016. We would give him 5 points for having the name John Kennedy. We felt like there were Democrats voting for him because he had the name. How could you be a bad politician if your name is John Kennedy, right?
Right.
And so that's important. And one way you build name ID is again through advertising. That's very important. But also that's how you craft your message, where you let people know who you are and what you're doing and what you're about and what you're going to do. Well, Cassidy has near 100% name recognition, and people already know what he's about, and they know what he did. They know that he voted to convict Trump, which wasn't impeachment. It was actually conviction for high crimes and misdemeanors, which could have foreclosed Trump even running again, and we would have Biden or Kamala only because of their vote. And no one has ever produced any evidence. Remember, he was asked, why did you vote to convict him? And his answer was, because he's guilty. But yet, what was he guilty of? No one has ever shown any evidence of guilt. So at the end of the day, I would just say that we're far different people, and we have far different opinions. I just think he's, in his heart, he's very Democrat in the way he thinks. He was actually a registered Democrat before he got into politics, and I think for political expediency, changed parties. And once he became comfortable after his first reelection, which is always a critical reelection, I think he thought that President Trump was done for, that he would probably go to prison. He would never run for, or if he did run, he would never be elected, because he actually believed the stuff they were saying about him up in Washington, whereas I'd never believed any of it. And I didn't think that his base, by and large, or the American people, would really believe the nonsense misinformation that was coming out of Washington and all this lawfare and so forth. And I even had Republicans who, let's say in 2022, would ask me, who do I think would be our next nominee for president? And I said, no brainer, it's Donald Trump. And they go, you got to be out of your mind, man. You're crazy. Donald Trump is done for. He's toast. There's no way this man will ever have a chance to run for president. And I said, you're just absolutely wrong. You don't understand the heart and the mind frame, the mindset of the people who support this man, because he always does what he says, or at least he does the best he can to accomplish it. That's truly unique among politicians, especially presidents. And I said, as long as his base is so attached to him this way, this man not only will be our nominee, but I think he likely will be reelected as president.
Now,
So, oh, go ahead.
Rex, let me ask John a question on
Yeah.
that. John, you spent personal time with Donald Trump. I mean, you worked in the White House there with him. I mean, for the folks here, I mean, you're a hometown boy right here, and granted, Mike is as well too. But you spent a lot of time with Donald Trump, working there with him. What's the man really like? What kind of person is he down? If I ran into him in a grocery store, how would he be? What is he like?
Very charming, always in control, soft-spoken in a small group. My wife and I were invited when I was deputy chief of staff in the White House. We were invited to Camp David, and we spent kind of an intimate weekend with him and others. There were members of Congress there, some of them, and just truly charming. He might compliment you on your tie, say nice things about you. Entertaining, funny, constantly funny, hilarious. So really big personality, and this what you see in front of the camera, this kind of anger and shouting and all
Intense.
that. We just didn't see that. Now, what's interesting though is there are two personas for this man, and I've seen nothing since he left office but a very angry man, like out on the campaign trail and all that. Well, once he got elected, I don't know if you've noticed, but he seems to be a totally different person, far more settled, far more, I think, accepting of what's happening around him, far more confident. He's achieved, he overcame all of his enemies. And so when you see him today on camera, he's much more like what I saw in the White House in a more intimate setting, and also on Air Force One.
So that reminds me, I've got an interesting challenge for both of you to do, and everybody watching. We got, I don't know, 60-something people, 70-something people right now. This is going to sound crazy, especially coming from me, and I'm relatively conservative, although I have some libertarian leanings. But you need to go watch the monologue from Bill Maher, the comedian and political pundit. I think it was last week, about his visit with Trump. And it sounds crazy for me to recommend conservative people to go watch Bill Maher, but his monologue about his visit with Trump in the White House tracks almost identically to what you just described, John.
Interesting.
All right, so I got a question. So since we're on the Trump track, of course, it's no secret Duke and I both support Trump too, but these tariffs. Now, I'm not opposed to the tariffs, but it seems like we've kind of got a little bit of a, let's say, financial freight train coming, at least in the beginning. Since we all three support Trump, what is your stance on the tariffs? Do you think they're a good idea? Do you think they're a bad idea? Short term, long term? Where do you fall on that?
Well, in the end, I think tariffs are not good. However, I support what Trump is doing, and let me explain why. So let's go back to the end of World War II. The only Western power democracy left standing, and that also applies to the Axis forces as well, the countries like Japan and Germany. And certainly the Soviet Union was decimated, England, France. I mean, these countries were wiped out. And so we were the strong country left, and we've been the strongest country ever since then, but not before then. In many ways, other powers were more powerful than us before World War II. So what did we do? We let them up easy. We had the Marshall Plan where we helped rebuild Europe. We also rebuilt Japan. We created a whole new real society in Japan, a whole new government that had never existed before. We were a very benevolent country, but one of the things that we did is we allowed them to put tariffs on our exports because we were trying to let them build up. Do y'all remember the first imports from Japan? I don't know if y'all are old enough to remember this, but they were little baskets. And we used to laugh about them, made in Tokyo. And we used to chuckle about that. But when those Toyotas began to be shipped to America, we stopped laughing because those were dang good cars, and they still are. And the Japanese really have done well. So what's happened is they're now competing with us in terms of quality of products and all the things they can do because they're all smart people. But we still have the same barriers on us that we were allowed 70, 80 years ago. And so it's time that we drop those barriers. And instead of having just free trade, we need to have fair trade. And so what he's basically doing, remember that, I don't know if you've read The Art of the Deal. I read it like 30 years ago, the book from Trump. And if you haven't read it, you should read it. You'd understand Trump better if you read it. He's always doing a bank shot. He never puts the ball directly into the net. He banks it off the backboard. So what does he do? He comes up and he says, I'm going to put tariffs on all you guys. Yeah, if you put a 30% on us, we'll put a 60% on you. Actually, what he really did was he actually went halvesies. If they had 60, he went 30. And of course, it shook the world, and the stock market has cratered. But now they say today there's 18 deals on the table. And so what he's working towards is an even and balanced trade where tariffs are small, if even there, on both sides. And that's going to advantage us. Why? Because we're the largest consumer nation in the world. So I would say to you, it is creating temporary disruption. It makes us nervous to see the markets go into, chaos. But what he's trying to achieve is balanced trade. And that's going to be a very good thing for America and really for the world. And I think that this is his bank shot. He starts off by saying, I'm not going to threaten you. I'm just going to go ahead and put the tariffs out there. And if you want to bring our tariffs down, you got to bring your tariffs down, and let's make a deal. That's classic Trump.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and on that, one more. I mean, you are the treasurer, so one more thing on that. With the tariffs. I mean, if I read correctly, the market manipulation of the currencies. So allegedly, do you think that some of these countries, like I think Vietnam was maybe the first country that yelled calf rope and said, "Hey, yeah, we want to talk." And I think they manipulate their currency or allegedly manipulate their currency, extremely. Do you think some of those, because it's been whispered for years that they were going to at some point have to revalue and bring their currency, to a like an equal playing field with the dollar. Do you actually think those things are going to happen?
Well, manipulating currency is a short-term strategy. It's never a good long-term strategy because it's inflationary in those countries. By deflating, anytime you deflate a currency, remember, again, I don't know if y'all are old enough to remember the inflation of the 70s. We had hyperinflation. And what happened then was that, with the deficits and the national debt and everything, and then the oil prices and all that, we kept just printing money, and it was achieving short-term goals. But in the long term, we ended up with hyperinflation that was up in the double digits. And it took a real hard blow, moving interest rates up to 18% on mortgage rates, 21% on the prime to finally gain control, and it put us in a deep recession. So we paid a huge price for devaluing our currency. So it's only really a short-term strategy, and it's the kind of thing that a 4-year term president is likely to do to make himself look good now, and then obviously leave it for another president to have to deal with the problems. So those countries that do this, they're I don't think they're bettering themselves by devaluing or manipulating the currency.
All right, so I would be remiss if I didn't read this comment from Miss Ruth Pope Johnston. Um, she is a fan of the show and a friend of mine and Duke's, but she's at the Republican women's meeting right now tonight, so she's not watching the show right now. She said she'll be watching it later, but she wanted to give Dr. Fleming thanks, and her appreciation and respect for you was realized months ago when Duke and Colonel Crockett appeared before the Bond Commission that you chair regarding the people's petition for term limits. It takes a person really invested in serving the people to stand alone to vote singularly on their behalf as you did that day. I was there with a group of Bossier City citizens who came to support the people's petition for term limits. We left at 3 a.m. to make it to the meeting on a chartered bus, for which I was on too. But not one person complained. Not one person who came will ever forget your resolve because it matched ours. Can you please direct me to your local campaign office so that I might volunteer to work in your campaign? Much respect, Ruth Pope Johnston.
Well, first of all, Ruth is a very intelligent woman. Let me say that. No, I'm just kidding. She's a sweet lady. The way to volunteer, you can go to my website, which is FlemingSenateCampaign.com, and there's a button that you can click, and you can volunteer that way. And we certainly appreciate volunteers. One of the things that we're working with on volunteers is getting yard signs out. We have well over 1,000 yard signs out, and more going out every day. So, and yeah, I remember that day very well. And the whole thing was a conundrum. We had really, our situation was parallel to that of the city council, because the city council had a duty and a responsibility to pass that petition along and put it into effect. And yet they didn't do that. They were self-serving, obviously. And I'm saying that because that's what the court said. So I think I'm confident in that position. But we also had a duty to pass that along as well and to say, well, you've brought all the documents to us and they're technically in order, and therefore we have to approve this. But, ideologically, I felt it was unfair. I felt like that they ignored the voice of the people. And mine was sort of a protest vote, but also because the court judgment was still pending, I felt like that that was reason not to approve it, which is why I voted no. But that gives you an idea of what it was like for me in the House of Representatives. When I saw something like that, I might be among the small minority of people who would vote no, especially on the rule, meaning that we should have come with a better bill. I would rather have a better bill than to have to vote on this bill, even if I would probably vote for it rather than more than against it. Why not send it back and let's pass it through rules again and have a better bill? So that was kind of my position on that. And I very much respect the citizens. And I know some of them were kind of up in years. So it was a real hard lift for them to get up that early in the morning and to travel all that way and then have to go back. And so I had to have nothing but respect for that. And of course, as you know, I also released all of the members to vote their conscience because I was voting my conscience. And I didn't want to try to hold their vote because in some ways they were right, because we did have that duty to push that through. But in some ways that was wrong. And that was the dilemma that we were in. And I think at the end of the day, this thing is all going to work out perfectly because I believe when is it up for the vote? When is it?
Folk,
May?
folks are voting right now.
Yeah, early voting right now. May the 3rd
Oh,
is
it's
the official
already
election.
up. Okay. All right. I feel confident that it's going to pass, and you're going to ultimately get the retroactive term limits that you've been working for, because I believe that as long as we have a democratic process that finds its way to work. It may run into barriers along the way, but ultimately finds its way to work, whether it's with the courts or with other bodies. Then ultimately, the will of the people are going to win out, and I'm confident that it is, and I think honestly that will in some way sort of certify my opposition to passing it that day, because I felt it was premature. That if we had waited, I wish the courts had gone a little faster, honestly, but we can't determine the speed of the courts. But but my position was that they were going at the appeal level. They were going to support your petition, and so I anticipated that, and that was really my reasoning for opposing pushing through the city council's version of that. And I think it's proved all of us right on this once we get those votes in.
Yeah,
Perfect. And
absolutely.
Miss Ruth is now in the comments, so she must be back from the Republican
Oh,
women's
okay, good.
meetings. So she's just messaged, said she's watching now. So thank you very much
Well,
for that.
great.
So,
Well, thank you, Ms.
so
Ruth. Thank you for the comments.
Rusty Maddox says location to get signs in the Bossier City area. I don't know that you have a campaign office in Bossier yet, but I would say, Rusty, you can come by my office, and I have some signs there. You know where it's at, and you more than welcome to stop by and get them there.
Yeah, this is what we're doing. We're reaching out to uh, Republican bodies like Republican Women and so forth, and we just ask who can accept 25 or more signs, and what we'll have them drop ship to you, and then you can distribute them among friends and neighbors and family, and or connect with somebody who can accept those. I think that's the most efficient way to do it. Renting a bunch of real estate around the state is very expensive and really premature. We can do most everything we need to do in a virtual way. That's efficiency.
Well, I think we have beat you to a pulp with questions. I know you've had a long day and you're trained for this kind of thing or what have you, but we appreciate you showing us the kindness of coming and taking a few questions. And you're welcome anytime to come back on. And as the campaign goes on, maybe you'll come back and kind of give us an update as things develop.
Oh, sure, would love to. I've enjoyed it this evening, and thanks for inviting me on, Duke and Rex. And yeah, would love to come on more as the as we go along in the campaign. Just a quick update before we close. Uh, as you know, I'm the only, I would say, significant opponent to Bill Cassidy at this point. There have been others rumored. For instance, Clay Higgins, Representative Higgins, has declined to run. There have been rumors about a few other people who are in office who would certainly be a first tier opponent in this, but so far none have moved forward. There are people, and there always are people, who've never really been elected to office and never raised money, who have already announced. But again, that's inevitable. I knew that would happen. So there are three polls that have been out there, and in all three polls, head to head between me and Bill Cassidy, if the election were held today, I would win. So we've got tremendous momentum. I think that uh, I align with Louisiana, and Louisiana aligns with me in terms of our positions on Trump and really our ideological positions. And so, but we're going to really operate like we're way behind, because that's how you win these races. Is you never be satisfied with your progress. You always want to work hard and gain more votes, more support, and certainly Bossier, Shreveport, but particularly Bossier is my political base. It was Bossier that got me elected to my first term in Congress to begin with, and has always been strong for me. My numbers have always been strong. But actually, I've got strong numbers now in South Louisiana, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, even New Orleans. We're really, I think, doing well, and we're on schedule. And the election is going to be a year from this month. It'll be next April. It will be a primary election, Republican on Republican, and then there'll be a runoff in May, and then, of course, the final general election is the following November. So that's the update for everyone. And yeah, anybody who's interested in signs or volunteering, please go to my website, FlemingSenateCampaign.com, and you can do whatever that you please to do. We certainly appreciate it.
Well, like Duke said, we both appreciate you taking the time to come on tonight. It's been an excellent interview. I think Duke and I both learned a little bit at least. And I won't make any bones about it. You've got my support because of the bond commission and standing on principle. And so you got my support for sure.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. We all have a great evening. And until we see you again, take care.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well,
I'm blown away. Louisiana was the first state to be able to accept crypto for payment.
I know. We were first in something. I mean, that's just almost a miracle.
I had no idea. That is awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't either. Learned several things tonight. All right. So I hope that was a good interview for everybody. That gave a lot of insight. Dr. Fleming's really good about taking the ball and running with it on a topic. And you notice when he gets done, he just stops, and then us little pundits can chime in and pester with our other questions. But I hope that gave everybody a little more insight if you aren't familiar with Dr. John Fleming.
Yeah, and he's the real deal. He isn't a wannabe conservative. He's always been a true conservative, not just using the term. I mean, he's always been that limited government guy, and
Right.
I would agree. He's not, the K Street thing. I mean, I haven't never saw that as being him. I never thought that he would be the guy that once he finished his term in D.C., he would be moving there to be a lobbyist or some crap like that. I always thought of him as he was going to be the guy that was going to come home, and he in fact did that. Unlike a lot of people, he did. He came home, ran for statewide office, and wanted to serve here. And I think he would be a good fit up there. I think his relationship with Trump, and Kennedy is already viewed as an elder of the Senate. John is viewed as, level-headed, and I think him and Kennedy would complement each other as our two senators up there. I really do.
Yeah, I think so. And speaking of politicians, although I wouldn't necessarily consider Mr. Danny McCormick a pure politician, I think he's another one of the good guys. He is in the green room. Shall we go ahead and bring on our second guest?
The beatings will continue until you submit. Come on with it.
All right, let's see if he magically shows up. How are you, Mr. McCormick?
I'm doing great, guys. How are y'all doing tonight?
Oh, not
it
too
looks
bad.
like you're on the curvy couch.
I am. I'm just sitting here relaxing, watching y'all's show and enjoying it very much.
Well, excellent.
Well, rumor has it that you keep, in the case of an emergency, a carbon dioxide cylinder on hand, ready to go, just in the event that you need to evacuate a room down there. Is that true, or is that not true?
Well, I actually hadn't got one, but that's a great idea. So I believe we could get it done.
I was reading on here the cautions and the hazards, something about, it will suddenly asphyxiate you and kill you dead in your track, which I thought would be pertinent to tonight's conversation a little bit.
I
Well,
agree.
but on the flip side to that, it helps the plants grow. You know.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. They sequester it real good, no doubt.
right. All right. So, are we got? I guess we're gonna get educated on this carbon capture, carbon sequestration. Is this snake oil or snake gas, or what is going on with this?
Well, if you believe in the Green New Deal, I mean, this is right up your alley. I mean, if you think we should take federal tax dollars and take and store this carbon underneath our property, our private property, and leave it there for eternity, and where it's going to turn into carbonic acid, it's a great deal. And and you kind of mentioned the point there. Carbon capture is not the negative part. Carbon capture and sequestration, the actually storing of the carbon underground. There's a lot of things they catch carbon for that are things that we would approve of, but it's the sequestration, and it's the storing it under our property. It's a thing about carbon sequestration is this: it's a different type of lease than normally an oil and gas lease. Like, for instance, the pore space under your property where this will be stored belongs to the landowner. So that doesn't take into account the mineral owner in this. So a person that leases their property to have this stored underneath it may also impede on any further oil and gas production on this property, because when CO2 mixes with the water underground, it turns into carbonic acid, which is very corrosive. So in turn, it actually raises the cost of drilling any oil and gas in that area in the future. So, the two biggest issues I have with it is private property rights first. We're doing something that I consider utterly stupidity, and we're doing it to appease the green people, which is kind of odd when it comes to this. Lots of the environmentalist groups are against carbon sequestration because they're wanting to put the oil business out of business. So by doing this, they think it's going to prolong the oil business. So that's an issue that that they have with it.
Well,
But
I was a little confused. Let me ask you this. So, I kind of view this carbon sequestration boondoggle as a left wing tree hugging, oh, we've got to, get rid of the carbon dioxide in the environment type of thing. But riddle me this: those same tree huggers are against fracking, which is, injecting liquids and sands or whatever is all used in the fracking process. They're against injecting that, but they're for injecting carbon dioxide, which is heavily expansive, into the ground. They're okay with that. I mean, how does this square up?
Well, actually, some of those left-wing groups are coming to the table on the 29th to support some of our bills to reel in carbon sequestration. So they're confused. They thought that that we were trying to save the planet, and they don't see this as a way of saving the planet. They see this as polluting the planet. So really, in this deal, you have the number one group, which is the globalists, the ones that just seek power over people. Their agenda is to raise the price of oil and gas. So we have to go to the government to have our energy needs supplemented. It's going to make us more dependent on the government, just like kind of in our healthcare industry right now. And then you got another group, which I call just like the mercenaries. They're just in it for the money. They don't care if it's good or bad, and that's what we're dealing with in Baton Rouge. And then you have the third group, which are the environmentalists that think of, as a religion to them. So it's kind of an odd makeup of the people that's opposing carbon sequestration. Like for me, everybody says it's good for the oil and gas business. I've been in the oil and gas business my entire life. I think it's horrible for the oil and gas business. What they mean when they say it's good for the oil and gas business, they're saying the refineries or the LNG plants, people that think they need a smaller footprint to be able to sell their product, they are the ones that they're calling the oil and gas business.
Well, that brings me to something I was going to bring up here in a minute. You're talking about a 200-foot zone that you would have to drill through and then use special pipe to be able to drill through it, because the carbonic acid is one of the most corrosive things there is, out there, and that's why you have to have the special pipe. But this carbon sequestration thing has already done left the stable a little bit, per se. And isn't it accurate that we have some places where there are 11,000 foot deep wells, and we're currently sequestering, or have already done leases to sequester carbon at, say, the 3,000 foot level? So what happens to that old drill pipe on those old wells that are currently there at 11,000 feet, and the carbonic acid starts attacking the strings that are not of the metal that it's supposed to be? What's going to happen?
What we've been told that the research has to be done, and before you can sequester carbon, you have to go re-enter that oil well, and you have to replace any pipe or cement that are not up to standards before you can inject in the zone that's going to affect that well. That's what we're being told. It's hard for me to believe, first of all, that you can find all those old well bores, and the next is that you're going to be able to afford to do that. That's got to be Duke, I know you've been in the business. That's a tremendous expense when you start going into these old well bores. You can get collapsed case, and there's 1,000 things that can be wrong with these old well bores. And it's just not realistic to me that you can go in and prepare them in a good enough shape where they won't leak in the future.
All right, so we're getting a little bit of feedback through your audio, Danny. I'm gonna try something here for a minute. Bear with me. All right, so now nobody should hear the feedback, if I'm correct, Dee Dee and everybody, Jessica, that's asking. So what I'm going to try to do is turn Danny down a little bit when we're talking, turn him right back up when he's talking, and that way that'll try to help eliminate some of that feedback.
Yeah, to that point, that's a number that is not practical at all, and obviously nobody has done the math. I mean, Texas, for example, I think Texas acknowledges that they don't have enough money to address all the current issues that they have with all the orphan wells, and they can't even get their arms around it. And if Texas can't do it, there ain't no way in heck Louisiana's ever going to be able to do it. But so this technology of this quote unquote sequestration, I mean, and folks, a lot of folks aren't like you and I, Danny, and understand the oil business. But, when we're fracking, we're pumping basically water and sand down in the formation. And the purpose is to crack that formation. They will frack. They'll literally make an explosion down there within the rock and cause it to fracture. Then we'll pump the water and the sand down inside there, and we basically make it swell up like a balloon, and it expands, and that sand and those grains get all within those cracks, and then we let the pressure off, and all that rock settles back against each other. But the only difference is it's got a bunch of sand in the cracks now, providing a space for the oil or the gas to flow through the sand and come on out of the reservoir. But now what we're talking about doing is we're not fracking it to pump CO2 in it. We're pumping it in there. And as I appreciate it, we're probably going to be pumping it at some pretty heavy pressures and not relieving those pressures. And oh, by the way, it turns into carbonic acid, or it's highly corrosive, and it's going to start eating, if there is anywhere a hole put through anywhere, it's going to start eating at it. And at some point, unless They are actively monitoring. Is the government with that $85, for doing this? Are they paying to monitor all these wells, or is that just what the state's going to have to do because it was our wells before?
Well, no, it's supposed to be the companies that doing the sequestration that are supposed to be responsible for that. And also the companies have to drill monitoring wells to figure out where the plume is going. They're going to have to drill freshwater wells just to make sure there's nothing migrating into the freshwater sand. The DENR that we have in place right now, I think, is the best group of people that I could think that could implement this without having a negative effect on the landowner. But the bottom line is this is a woke agenda. I mean, we're doing something here that is equivalent to saying that biological males ought to play women's sports. I mean, this is the woke agenda. It's stupidity that we're doing it. We're, you know what I mean? We're doing something that's complete utter stupidity. And regardless if we could do it without harming anything, it's going to drive up our strand oil and gas reserves. It's not compensating the people that may own the minerals and not own the land. It's not compensating them for their loss. These plumes may be as big as 40,000 acres, and if you have 75% of the landowners involved, you can force the other 25% in against their will. And it's for something that's stupidity.
Well, that right there just pisses me off enough to make me want to chew a 10-penny nail about forcing everybody to have to get in on this, or expropriating property or rights for a private company. But I want to get back to the money, and why I was talking about, the state and the cost of monitoring and all of that, because bottom line is when that $85 per ton runs out from the federal government, or Trump cuts back on the Green New Deal, cuts this little, or Elon gets a hold of it, who's going to pick up the tab? These companies dang sure ain't going to pick up the tab. They're going to go bankrupt or shut down overnight. And then who's going to get left holding the bag? It'll be the same old song and dance. It'll be us, the state of Louisiana, right?
Well, yes, I would say that could be true in some cases, but some of these operators are Exxon. These are $100 billion companies. So, and it's hard for me to believe that they're not moving ahead, knowing that their money is secured. I guess money talks and people walk. I cannot believe that they're not moving ahead. Already made the deals in Washington to know that this money is going to continue to come to them, because they're spending large sums of money to get this done. I think you heard it announced that we were going to have a fertilizer plant come to South Louisiana, and it was going to have a low carbon footprint. Well, what they're planning on doing is capturing that carbon and sequestering it locally. Well, let me ask you a question. How many, you in the farming business too, how many farmers do you say going, hey, I need you to raise my fertilizer price. I'm willing to have this low carbon fertilizer. Well, nobody's going to buy that fertilizer that I know of unless they have to buy it. So what I'm scared of is they're going to get these large investments. And then the next political move at Washington is they're going to require, the government's going to require you to use these low carbon fertilizers or things like that, because nobody's going to buy this stuff. If you ask somebody that they want a clean environment, the answer is sure, yes. And the next question you asked was, you want to get where you have to ride a bicycle so you can, we're not going to have cars anymore for this low carbon footprint. People aren't going to voluntarily do this. And so what I'm concerned about moving ahead is the laws are going to change and force the people to buy these things.
So I got a 3-part question here. Let me see if I can do this the right way. Number one, and let me ask all 3 parts, but number one, who are the legislators? Number 2, who's making the most money? And number 3, how soon is the legislature down in Baton Rouge going to allow a carbon sequestration pit below the Capitol building?
Well, we may have one already inside the Capitol building. I don't know. It stinks in there most of the time. But yes, I mean, it's that they expect to have 4 permits this year. So there's going to be 4 different places on a Class 6 well that we expect them to be injecting this year. On April the 29th, we have a meeting, and we're running several bills to help reel back in this carbon sequestration. They got to be spending millions of dollars on lobbyists down here to fight us on this. The biggest problem we have is, like, even though I'm against carbon sequestration, the reality is the people in my district all know little or nothing what I'm talking about. But I will guarantee you this: if it ever comes to my district, they're going to look at me and say, "Why did you let this come to my district? This is horrible for our private property rights." But what you have in Baton Rouge right now, on a large extent, is most of the legislators, it's not happening in their district, so they're not getting any pressure. So you have the lobbyists and the large companies on one side, and there's nobody in their district on the other side. Now, around, I would say, Sabine Parish, Allen Parish, those people are livid down there now. They're having grassroots meetings pop up, 500 or 600 people just generically coming to these grassroots meetings. They're mad, they're aggravated. They're aggravated that it's got to this point. I don't blame them at all. I've went to a couple of those meetings just to mix with those people and see if it was a real deal, and it is. These country people, these solid Republican voters, are having their private property rights taken away, and they are livid. And when it comes to the area, to other people's areas, they're going to be livid too.
Danny, I had somebody send me a question, and I think I understand their question correctly. I think I'm going to ask it right, but so, given all the problems with carbon sequestration that we think that we know, I mean, to me, I feel like this is unproven. I'll say it that way. I mean, it's not proven as to whether it's safe or not safe. I mean, there's already been, somebody in the comments pointed out that there was an incident in Mississippi where there was a failure, and I'm not sure if there were some fatalities in that deal over there or not, but it was a pipeline failure. But their question was given the problems, is there a place that sequestration can happen, or can we do it, safely, or is there a place for it, or do you know?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I guess my point is this. My point is it's stupidity, so why should we? You want to mitigate risk, right? Every time I get in my vehicle and drive to town, there's a risk there, right? But if I'm going to get in my vehicle and drive 100 miles an hour to get to town, and I don't even need to be in town, it's a useless trip. I mean, we're not, that's stupidity. So that's what we have. We have all the risk with no rewards. The only rewards I see are going to go to these large corporations that think they need this low carbon footprint to be able to sell their products. That's one thing that we got in a meeting we had today. We were saying, the AI facility coming to Northeast Louisiana, and what they're saying is it would not be coming if they didn't have carbon sequestration. If we didn't have carbon sequestration, they're not going to build them where they're not have that. So that's the only argument, that we need to. Mark Zuckerberg, we need to cater to him because he wants a low carbon footprint. And so, it serves no practical purpose except what the argument we were giving is it's going to create jobs.
So I think Chuck Owen and maybe some others have indicated that they want a local opt-out option, like video poker bans in the 90s. Should parishes be able to vote on whether they want carbon capture projects to even be allowed in their particular parish or area, and if they want to assume the risk?
And my answer to that question is yes. There again, it's why do the individuals in Allen Parish or Sabine Parish, why do they want to give up their private property rights against their will for something that's stupidity? I mean, it does not benefit anything. So yes, I think they should have a local option. Anything that I can do to preserve, my biggest goal in this is preserve private property rights. If you own, there's a gentleman down here in South Louisiana. He's comes from a 5th generation Wealthy family. They have hundreds of thousands of acres. He's got a big tract of land. He wants to store carbon just under his property. let him do it, right? I mean, it's his property. If he strands his minerals, it's his minerals. If he, if he does anything negative to his property, it's his property. That's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern are the individual landowners, the guy that owns 5 acres or 100 acres or 500 acres. Their property rights need to be preserved, and that's what my legislation tries to do.
I heard one of the people that were a proponent of the sequestration that were promoting it, and they said that Louisiana, I think how they described it is the one of the best places in the world to sequester carbon, and they said for 2 reasons: one, because of our geology, and then two, because of regulatory. And I thought, well, boy, it sure seems like it's probably more of the second or the latter than it was the first one. Uh, isn't that been the case? Now, you were complimenting earlier a little bit, but our regulatory, I don't think our regulatory has been on top of things. Has that improved?
Well, what they may be referring to is we have primacy, which basically means that we as the state government oversee this instead of the federal government overseeing it. We have primacy. And I'm actually a proponent of a primacy. I know a lot of people don't like it. I like it better because I know if my constituent has a problem, I can get on the phone and call the head of DENR and complain. We're calling the EP in Washington, may not even ever happen. So that's maybe what they were referencing is that. And as far as the formations, I think more in South Louisiana more than in North Louisiana. You have these large saltwater zones that are under low pressure that do not have very little or no hydrocarbons in it, and that's where they're going to be storing them. But that even brings up a whole new area, a new issue when it comes to oil and gas. Any of these zones that are going to be stored with the CO2 are not going to allow saltwater disposal in them now. So that's a necessary part of the oil and gas business is disposing of saltwater. But they're not going to allow you to do that in these zones because you may move the plume. So it even hurts the oil and gas from that aspect also.
I am out of questions as far as this goes. I mean, my biggest thing is just A, follow the money. B, if it's not good enough to put it under the Capitol building in Baton Rouge, it shouldn't be good enough to put under somebody else's land if they don't want it. I don't know. What do you say? What say you, Mr. Lowrie?
Well, no, that does concern me immensely about you know and I think that's been a big discussion in some of the committee meetings. Is about the eminent domain and taking people's property without them really being able to do anything about it. And it would be one thing if it was for the benefit of government. If government was going to put an interstate through or a road to alleviate traffic, or we were going to build a power plant because we don't have enough electricity for everybody around, or we needed to build a flood control structure, things like, I get that. But this is for private business. This is a business venture. And oh, by the way, it's a business venture. So not only are you going to get your land taken for it, you're going to pay taxes to the federal government that's going to turn around and pay for them to take your land. I mean, just something about that is just very sick and makes me nauseated. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird.
I've said this in committee before that communism can be summed up. It's been said of this in the past in the abolition of private property rights. And when you have a company, $100 billion company, say, "Hey, I'm going to take your private property rights because it's going to create jobs," it's not worth it to me. I mean, that's the wrong message. Private property rights, we've got to preserve them at every avenue. I got a couple of bills. One is a moratorium that puts it off for a year and a half, and another one straight out bans carbon sequestration. On both of those bills, I plan on amending them to under private property that does not want it under their property. If we have these other people that have large tracts of land that want to do it, that's up to them. but we've got to preserve private property rights. And that's what people need to understand. The pore space under your property where they want to store that CO2 is just as much private property to that landowner as their house or the tree in their yard or the grass that grows in the yard. It is their property, and they have no right being taken away from them for something useless as carbon sequestration. I haven't met anybody down here that's pushing this that says, hey, I believe in this. I think we're going to save the world with this. That's not what they're saying. They say we need this to be able to sell on the international market. You know, my friend, Representative Chuck Owen, he's done the research. He said he hasn't found any foreign countries saying you have to have this low carbon footprint to be able to sell us natural gas. But that's what they're claiming. So there's something diabolical going on with this when a company is wanting to increase their input costs when other countries are saying they want it, which in reality, I know that's not true. I mean, there may be people in leadership are saying that, but you know, I think if you're in the 1% of wage earners in the world, you earn like $33,000 a year. If you're in the 1% wage earners in the world, you think those people are saying, "Hey, we want carbon sequestration so to drive up our energy cost"? I mean, that's just. I mean, it's not the people that wants this. It's the globalists, you know, the Klaus Schwabs of the world that want to control things. That's the people that want it. And sure, I'm sure some of these foreign countries have these dictators in it that are wanting to control their people that want it. But in reality, the people in this country and the people in other countries don't want it. Now, I'm sure if you looked at somebody and said, "Hey, do you want clean fuel?" and they'd say, "Well, sure I do." Anybody would say that. Who would be an idiot not to say that? But you're not going to be able to run your thermostat this summer if we do it this way. You know, that's the issue. And the people don't want this. Once they understand the facts, they don't want it.
I'm convinced this is nothing more than another money grab, like, you know, Solyndra, just like the windmills being buried all over freaking Wyoming up there. I mean, I seen the fields of the blades off of those windmills up there with them bulldozing. I mean, I worked right up there around Casper where they were burying them, and you know, it was all government subsidized. I think this is another thing, and what makes me sick about it is it has a local tie here, because our port is one of the first people around the state that really kind of got into this business. I mean, they've got their sequestration thing down there with their intent of pumping this crap through a pipeline down south. And, you know, so it's about, you know, living off of the government dole, and it's even your local politicians. But oh, by the way, the port is not accountable to damn near anybody. So, I mean, unless we all load up in our trucks and go down there with pitchforks, there ain't nothing we can do.
When you
Right?
get ready to do that, when you get ready to do that, Duke, I'm ready. The Caddo Bossier Port's the biggest con going on in Caddo Parish. It may rank right up there with term limits, but yes, the Caddo Bossier Port is putting a direct air check capture unit in their port, and I feel confident the people are moving there because, hey, you don't have to pay any taxes to anybody if you move in the port. You just got to pay off the port where they can afford their $500,000 salaries a year down there. And they're going to put it in an existing pipeline, and they're going to pump it across people's property that don't know it's coming across their property because it's in an existing line down to Sabine Parish where they're going to dispose of it. And I actually text you the link, Duke, of that of article on that accident in Mississippi if you wanted to share it in the comments, or if you know anywhere you want to use it there. But you know, let's talk about a little bit about a CO2 leak. CO2 weighs 1.5 times heavier than air. So if you have a leak, it wants to stay close to the ground. The biggest danger from a CO2 leak is asphyxiation. So when you have that leak, this CO2 is not going to have the same chemicals in it that gives it a distinct smell like natural gas does. So it's odorless. So there's your problem right there. You can be having a leak. You can walk right into it. There's no indication of, because there's no smell. It's odorless, and asphyxiation is a serious issue. And our great port down there, the greatest con in Caddo Parish, figures they need to ship it through our parish across everybody's private property down there to Sabine Parish, because, hey, it may benefit some people out there at the port somehow. So, but yes, that's matter of fact, I got a bill to deal with the port. Maybe we can reel them in a little bit down there. But yes, that's happening right there, and it's going to be going across people's property that are watching your show right now that probably never know it's there unless there is that leak.
Wow. All right. What else do we need to discuss this evening with Mr. McCormick?
Well, I'm curious. So Danny started hitting on something, and I'd wanted to cover it earlier. Was talking about that somebody else has put in there that it's it's an explosive danger, in which I don't think it's like flammable, but it's explosive under pressure. But the biggest thing is that it's just like you said. You're not going to smell it. It's an asphyxiant, and it settles low to the ground, and you're not going to know it. I mean, it's not like it's not like you're not the if you're oil field, it's not going to be the rotten eggs. That ain't going to be the way it is.
And that's and all this risk that we have to take. So there's for no purpose. There's no purpose in carbon sequestration. It's a falsehood. It's woke. I mean, like for instance, you got to believe that biological men plays women's sports before you can believe carbon sequestration is going to save the world. I mean, it's that same woke thinking. It just makes no sense. Being woke means, in my opinion, means saying something completely ridiculous and expecting other people to believe it. It's woke. Carbon sequestration is woke.
Well,
Yeah,
and not just that, I want to bring up one point. When you go back and look at the Jurassic period, where and they've done the ice core samples to see what the atmosphere was made of, the CO2 levels were through the roof. Now, granted, I'm sure it was much warmer, and there were big giant lizards running around with big giant plants, but it's not like CO2 is going to kill all life on Earth. You can look it up yourself. Don't take my word for it.
Yeah, Rex, I agree. I mean, from my little study of history, when you look back in history, when the planet was warmer is when civilization prospers the most, not when it was during the ice age. So when we have larger carbon in the atmosphere is when civilization actually was the most prosperous.
True enough.
So folks, if you don't know a lot about this carbon sequestration, you should take a little time and study. If you have a specific question, you could feel free to message Danny, and I'm sure he would love to answer any question that as best he can, and we'll even take a shot at trying. But you need to come to a conclusion on your opinion on this subject, and you need to make your voice heard and let your legislators, regardless of which one it is, what you think about it, because they're making some decisions on this subject right now, and these are decisions that are going to have uh, effects beyond our lifetimes. I mean, we'll all be dead and gone, but this is still going. This is a permanent thing, and in my opinion, it shouldn't be happening over the course of a year to even 2 years. This should be a long thought out. We should give more due diligence to a decision like this, not a quick snap decision. And I know Danny agrees. I don't even have to ask him. I know he agrees.
Yeah, and I will say this, for your viewing audience, you can go to McCormick, the number 4LA.com, and sign up to get my email updates. I've sent out several emails about this and start learning the process. April the 29th, we're going to have the committee hearings in Baton Rouge. You can tune in to the Natural Resource Committee and watch it. These hearings, I think it'd be extreme. David, a long day, and you may want to peel off your fingernails after you've been listening for 2 or 3 hours, but there's going to be lots of information. You're going to be able to, people are going to come to the table, lay people are going to come to the table, lay out their questions, and it'll be a good learning time for people to watch Natural Resources on April the 29th.
Yeah, and we'll try to share a link out to that and all that on our Facebook page and all that, and try to get as many people informed as we can.
You bet, you bet. And I appreciate y'all letting me come on tonight. This is just it's something passionate to my heart. And private property rights, we've got to preserve private property rights. We do that, and everything else is going to work out. But that's what we've got to do.
Well, Danny, any Tuesday night, you know where we're at. You know what we're doing. So if you got anything pressing, you need to get the word out. You've got the link. Just chime on in. You don't have to ask.
I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate everything y'all do. And thank you for letting me be on tonight.
Oh, thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's just an educational evening.
It is. I see. I learned something from John Fleming. I had no idea we were the first crypto folks, and I learned something from Danny. You know,
Right.
the I'm gonna say it wrong. The privacy, as he said it.
Yeah, we're learning all kinds of stuff we need to go look up and learn more about. And we encourage everybody. I put a link to Danny's website in the comments, and Duke, I think you had put a link earlier or whatever.
I
Folks,
did, but I didn't see it. Did it come up in the comments?
I think it did. It was like an NPR story or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what Danny shared and asked that we share it out and told people to go and visit that and read that article. It was
Yeah,
apparently pretty good.
I'll share it out again so it'll go on the YouTube and on all the Facebook, because we're still broadcasting on Louisiana Watch too. So I'm going to hit share right now, so I'll re-comment that back out. But yeah, look, do your homework, folks. We got some stuff that we'll post on Bossier Watch on the Facebook page about this and give you some more information to look up and do your homework. I see you yawning over there. Do we want to get into the city council, or shall we save that and maybe do a special Thursday night edition?
Oh, it won't take us long to peruse through it. I mean, we're
good. I was wanting to listen to a little bit of this.
Yeah, we're clicking right here at 100 people, and I think they wanna hear it. And I don't want to save it for next week or Thursday. I would rather get it out of the way.
I agree. So, folks, I'm going to switch screens. Trust me, if you got some friends that want to know what's going on in Bossier, again this week, well, we're picking on the city council again, and really kind of picking on Tommy. Where shall we start? Cassie and Cassie, I don't know if you're still watching the show, but just wanted to acknowledge, I saw your comment or your question when Dr. Fleming was on, but it wasn't really, I didn't think it was appropriate for Dr. Fleming at that time, and it was a long question. So, shall we start with Cassie's first comments and kind of explain that, and then we'll jump into the rest of it?
Yeah, sure. Go. I didn't see her first comment, and
Okay.
so I don't know what she was.
Yeah, she did a good job of kind of explaining it, but this is when they were discussing the agenda and whether to approve the agenda. So here we go.
Cassidy Rogers, Bossier City, Louisiana, 71112. I see the last line item of the agenda, which is the adopt a resolution providing the canvassing and returns. And maybe it's just because I'm ignorant, but the last time that I saw this or could find it, that something similar was done was September 15th of 2020 when a millage was passed. And at that time, no vote was taken. So I'm not understanding why a vote will be taken on the results of an election where the people already said what was going to happen, and it will revise our charter. So I believe it could have been an announcement, possibly even a proclamation, some sort of ceremonial matter. But the fact that it will be a resolution to be voted on, I think is an inappropriate use of that database. And you guys already had your vote. You went out and you voted. You don't get another vote, whether or not this goes into effect or whatever. And I do believe that the 415-page election code document for the state of Louisiana there's nothing in there. I read the whole thing. There's nothing in there that says that you get another vote, or that the only thing it says that it has to be published in the official journal, which I know that you guys do that without votes sometimes or all the time. So voting on the results of an election in fairness to the people's petition, because this will come up again, and we have seen time and time again that this council decides what administrative duties that they're going to do and what they're not going to do. You don't get another vote. I ask that you change this from a resolution to a proclamation. Thank you.
All right, so let me give my layman's terms of what I think Cassie was the point she was trying to get across, and I thought she did a pretty good job of it right there. What she's saying is that we had the March 29th election, and the term limits parts of that proposition passed. And then, of course, the changes to the charter, other than the term limits portion, did not pass. But what they're doing here is procedurally, the city council is required by state law, and Jacobs was correct in his later comments. It's literally in the ordinance. If folks go read the agenda in the ordinance, which the city publishes, but it's a procedural thing that they have to certify, and I'm not reading the verbiage verbatim off of the statute, but they have to basically certify and that's not the right term, but put forward the election results and send it down to Baton Rouge. And so procedurally, they're voting on this, but I would not expect any of them to ever vote no. And I don't think they will, even on the May the 3rd ballot. But I can see what Cassie's point is here. She doesn't trust them as far as we can throw them. And so she's got a little bit of a point, I believe, here. And so let's listen to the response to that.
Charles, you got any questions on that, or you got any answers?
I do not. That ordinance resolution was prepared by Brennan Black at Foley and Udell. It's a necessary step for the retroactive term limit matter that's on the May ballot. It's required by the state of Louisiana, Secretary of State, and the Bond Commission. I have no idea what Ms. Rogers is talking about.
All right. Now, I think, but folks, and Colonel Crockett and Cassie, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, he was referring to the upcoming May election. I think the agenda item was actually for the March the 29th ballot. So I think Jacobs was technically incorrect there, but I could be wrong too. This is only about the second time I've actually listened to this whole dialogue. No commentary, Mr. Lowrie?
Okay. I think this is a whole lot.
Spit it out.
I think this is how the governing body, wherever the election for whatever purpose was held, has to formally acknowledge the results. I think that's the purpose of this. And if you don't do this, then you're not formally acknowledging the results. I may be wrong and I may be off.
It's the way the statute reads. I read the statute before the show.
Yeah, I'm not understanding what we're arguing here. I mean, I may be totally, but I have not chased this down. I don't have a clue. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, my knee-jerk reaction to it is, and oddly enough, Jacobs, I think, was incorrect in his reference to which election was which. He, in the later comments, and we may listen to him or whatever, but he kind of goes over it again, and Chris Smith did it again, and Ryan Haygood says Chris Smith was an asshole to Cassie. I don't think he was, but I mean, yeah, he was a little bit in the way that he phrased it, but I think they were trying to get the point across that it is a procedural part of the statute. They have to do it. Now, Cassie's point is they could have just done it as a proclamation. I honestly haven't dug far enough into the statute to see whether I agree that they could have just done it as a proclamation, because Cassie's point was, well, by voting on it, arguably the good old boys could vote no. And that means they can vote no in May when they have to do the same procedural thing. But I don't think
Well,
that would anyway stop the election results. But then again, we'd have to sue again.
well, that's right. And now that they know, maybe they try it here coming up, and
Look,
we
you
can
never know with
raise
these, to
we
use
can
your
try to
term.
raise a bunch more money to fight another lawsuit again. But I mean, by all means, we should help them at their craft.
Don't make me comment on that, Mr. Lowry.
I'm
I am
trying to
biting
be
my
I'm
tongue at the minute.
I'm trying to be nice.
Mm,
Trying to be
You're
nice.
you're trying to make me say some things, and it's a live show, and there's no takebacks. Okay, so let's jump ahead to the most interesting part, I think,
Mhm.
and this is where we're going to talk about risk management and the risk management ordinance. So this we posted earlier today a screenshot of this ordinance that Tommy Chandler had for the first time like denied the ordinance. And he did some behind the scenes politicking. You're going to hear about it here in a second. This is straight up drama fest. Oh, and we get to hear the bull in the china closet read Tommy the riot act. So, all right, here we go.
Introduce an ordinance to require that any possible payments from the Risk Management Office or the City Attorney's Department over $75,000 must require prior council notice. First reading.
So moved.
Second.
Council, any questions? Any questions from the audience?
All right, so here's Colonel Crockett on tap.
David Crockett, 653 Dumaine Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I believe this is an improvement, but it doesn't really state very clearly whether it means that that would be done in an open meeting like this so that the public would be aware of what happened. And of course, I believe that this partially addresses a growing public distrust in Bossier City over the parking lot issues tied to Scott's Audio and Bossier Power Equipment, along with the fact that the public has not seen any of the pictures. There have been no disclosures of any written claims of liability or damage, so the public doesn't trust that that exists. Talk to any of the people in Bossier City or that are aware of those issues. So I understand that Mr. Hammonds thought that nobody on the council knew that that work was being done, but I don't think anybody trusts that, because we've seen examples in the past where city council have called specific offices and told them to do things at their direction that were illegal, subject of a lawsuit in Bossier City. So handling these kind of issues outside the council process sideline both other businesses and the public from knowledge that they had a right to know. So by putting these issues in the Office of Risk Management, which is very poorly defined in Bossier City's charter, it says the risk manager shall, I believe that they're good people that work in there, but they do what the attorneys and the mayor tell them to do. The risk manager shall be responsible for the city's liability and workman's compensation insurance programs. He will have the responsibility for maintaining the city's safety program and ensuring that proper employee training is conducted pertaining to the same. So undoubtedly, that needs to be addressed in the next charter commission if that ever picks up again. But I believe,
God forbid.
even for the public's knowledge, just because issues that are worked like this parking lot gate are handled in that office, it doesn't mean that the mayor and the public information officer should not be releasing public information about things that have damaged the city council and the city of Bossier City's reputation among the public. And the citizens in Bossier City who own businesses in those areas had a right to know that other damage had been occurring in that area. So I believe that this needs to be improved. It is a good start with $75,000, but I don't think that's quite enough to fix the perception that has happened. Thank you.
All right, so yeah, give us the summary.
Colonel makes a really good point there. And when he said it, it struck a nerve with me on the citizens' right to know that there may have been damage regarding all of that. You know, the mayor's office took an oath to, uphold the charter and to the citizens of Bossier City. And if he had knowledge of something that may have affected other citizens within Bossier and or other businesses, doesn't he have an obligation to everyone else as
Pick me,
well?
pick me, pick me, pick me.
But did he do that? I mean, Colonel just made me start thinking that it was selective. It was government
Hey,
picking
look,
the winners and losers here.
Tommy
Not,
is
not,
about to prove me correct on what I've said on this show over and over and over. And you're going to see this on full display here in a minute, where he makes a request and Hammonds puts a beat down on him, and Tommy has zero clue how to respond. Zero clue. I don't think. Now, maybe it is the golden goose that's laying the golden eggs, and they've got a printing press that all of a sudden the public has figured out about. Now, that may likely be the case here. And for those of you that don't know, this is going back to the parking lot situation that's been going on for a few weeks, where the stupid city attorneys, both of them, Charles Jacobs and Richard Ray, went out and played civil engineers and construction engineers, supposedly, and in the efforts to avoid a lawsuit, they agreed to basically give a couple of Bossier businesses new parking lots at taxpayer expense without council approval. And, these parking lots are going to cost somewhere in the hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. Is that a good summary, Mr. Lowry?
oh yeah, you're on the money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what Hammonds and Smith, or Smith and Hammonds, have introduced is an ordinance to limit the Office of Risk Management, which is basically the stupid city attorneys, to $75,000 they can cut a check for, but anything else they have to get council approval. Tommy literally, for the first time ever, decided to deny, or attempted to deny, getting this ordinance put forward. He even had Phyllis change the agenda and remove his name off the approval list. So this is straight up soap opera. Did he do that with term limits? Did he do that with the city's ordinances on thwarting term limits? Oh no. But when it involves money and the city attorneys, I think maybe we did find the golden goose with the golden egg accidentally. Thank you, Mr. Brian Hammonds.
You said Smith and Hammonds. That sounds like a damn law firm.
Or Smith and Wesson. All right, so here we go. Let's listen to Tommy. Now, what Tommy is trying to do is get them not to vote for the Smith and Hammonds ordinance, which would have put a $75,000, I'm just calling it, cap on the Office of Risk Management without council approval. So listen to this. This is crazy.
Which first off, let me just say something about the Smith and Hammonds ordinance. It was ridiculous. You know why it's ridiculous?
Wow.
That $75,000. How many people?
Well, that's like giving Jacobs and Richard Ray a blank check. Here, you can spend up to $75,000, and just do multiple checks, and it'll keep $75,000 us to death.
Yeah, but how many stupid change orders come through there on projects for $10,000 or something like that? I mean, a whole lot less money, but they're going to give them a blank $75,000.
Well,
I mean,
and look, they were even generous, as they remind us here. The school board has a similar policy, and their limit is $50,000. So Smith and Hammonds were being generous to let Richard Ray and Jacobs have $75,000 a pop.
I thought it was way too high. In my humble opinion, I thought it was way too high. It shouldn't even be like that. I think they should have to come to the council anyway.
Rusty Maddox says risk management shouldn't be able to spend $100 without council approval. I would agree with that, Mr. Rusty. All right.
Look, I gotta say, someone told me, you ought to look at the budget. Well, I don't know that there's a line item in the budget for risk management.
No, we don't want We don't want the budget, folks. What we want are the actual P&Ls. This is what we did with the Cypress District. Not the budget, because the budget's nothing but projections. And look, full disclosure, I'm no bookkeeper or accountant or whatever, but I've done plenty of projections and P&Ls. So what you want are the P&Ls, because that's going to show they have to have that in some kind of line item. That's what we need to start requesting.
Right, but how much do they have technically in that fund? If that's not listed in a, in the, let's just say the general budget that they put out there, because the P&Ls, don't anybody ever really request that or kind of get down there into the line item. Nobody ever really does that. But how much money is actually in there? Because you'll hear Jacobs here in just a second say, well, what is your limit? I don't remember. Somebody posed
Wes,
the question.
No, Wes does.
Yeah, it was Wes.
Yeah.
And,
this is about to get good, folks.
And what did Jacob say? No limit.
If you want to see where the corruption, I think we might be very close to over the target. And again, thanks to Brian Hammonds for pointing this out a few meetings ago, we might be over the target, over the goose and the eggs. All right, so let's listen to Tommy's request for time and this exchange between him and Hammonds. This is unbelievably good. Here we go.
President,
yes, sir.
As that email I sent y'all yesterday, and I'm respectfully asking that y'all do away with this or continue this to May 20th of 2025.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there for just a second. That's important to remember. Remember, Tommy says he sent y'all an email. That's going to be important here in a minute when Wes comments, and then a document that we're going to show you as well. Very important to remember that. All right, here we go.
I sent y'all an email on April 10th, and I was telling y'all that I was conducting a review on the policies and stuff like that, and I wish y'all would give me a little bit more time to do that.
How long is that going to take?
I'm asking until May 20th.
So May the 20th, you will have a complete layout of what.
Yes, sir, I sure will.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I mean, no need to get mad. I mean, this is a council meeting, not a mayor meeting.
Yes, sir. I will.
If you haven't figured that out.
Did y'all hear that? This is a council meeting, not a mayor meeting. I mean, technically the mayor by city charter is invited to the council meetings and all that, but that was a great retort there, Mr. Bull in the China Closet. Here we go.
Sorry?
This is a council meeting.
Oh, I'm glad you let me know that.
Yeah. All this is doing is putting some oversight until your so-called internal.
More, sir.
So who is conducting this internal investigation?
My administration. We're getting outside request for another attorney. Yes, sir.
So we're going to go out and hire another attorney and spend money to do an internal investigation here at the city.
You want ours to do it? You want ours to do it aside, sir?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
Did y'all catch that exchange right there? So first of all, Tommy didn't really know what to say, but we're going to have an outside investigation. And, he's stumbling trying to figure out what to come back with and how to handle Hammonds. And Hammonds says, oh, now you're going to spend more money? Which forces Tommy to say, well, do you expect us to use our own moronic city attorneys to investigate themselves? I mean, that's this whole thing in a nutshell.
I got nothing. I haven't been left speechless too many times, but I don't know what to say.
Well, Jessica Langley Maddox says, I could listen to that again and again and again. We might just have to do a little Facebook reel and YouTube short with that playing on a loop over and over for 90 seconds. All right, here we go.
Hey, then.
How much is that going to cost?
I don't know. Huh? It's minimal. I'm just asking you to let me do it.
You can do it, but there's no reason to send out an email asking council members to vote against this.
You heard that.
There's nothing wrong with what we are putting forth to put some oversight until this investigation is done. None at all. I don't think there's going to be anything pressing that will be over $75,000 going on right now that could not be handled or sent out in a simple email to let council know what is going on. It is not keeping anybody from your administration from doing their job. All it is doing is putting oversight on what is going on. It is the way that this charter is set up. It is the way that this city has been run. And this is just a simple ordinance put into place that down the road could be rescinded.
All right, I'm going to stop right there. And I want to let y'all know, surprise, surprise, Vince speaks up here in a minute. Vince actually speaks at a council meeting of all things.
Yes, he does. But you've seen his speech before. In fact, this was nothing more than a replay of the same speech from before. But you know what's interesting here? We're talking about risk management here, and you got Tommy and his administration, which includes Jacobs and Richard Ray. They're fighting to prevent transparency on, or maybe I shouldn't say transparency, but because they're not transparent. I mean, we're still waiting on the body cam footage of the Bossier City police officers when Vince Maggio called them to his store in the campaign. To
Hell,
which
we're still waiting from the last acknowledgement of our public information request. By the way, we need to complain to either the AG's Office of Ethics Board or whatever about that, because they still haven't acknowledged that within 5 business days.
Okay, yeah. So y'all feel free to tag the AG's office to investigate, people breaking the law, because I have no faith in them doing it. Maybe all of y'all can tag them and tell them, and if you want to quote me to say that Duke doesn't have any faith in the AG's office to investigate enforcing the law, that's fine. I have no problem with that too. But if memory serves me correctly, when did risk management and the responsibilities suddenly fall under the city attorney? When did that happen?
That is a good question. And why would it be under the city attorney? Does anybody know? Anybody got a memory lane deal that we can go down?
Well, I'm thinking, and I may be totally wrong, and I'm trying to think back, because this is really making me wonder. But I mean, because look, Tommy's losing his crap over this. So it's got to make you scratch your head and say, why is he wigging out here? What's the big deal here? And, I remember when this term first started, with this whole thing with Tommy and this council or whatever. And I remember a lot of stuff with Manchac. Like, remember the billing during the ice storm for Manchac?
Oh yeah. Overbilling,
the
I think would be the correct term.
The overtime and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, as I appreciated it and as I remembered it, as the story went, was Pam Glorioso was responsible for writing checks and things like that. And as I recall from what, was conveyed to us was that she refused to pay the invoices. And then suddenly she was gone. And then all of a sudden those invoices got paid. And you had a still city attorney, which was the old city attorney, Jimmy Hall at that time. They were suddenly then paid. Fast forward to now, and you have a new city attorney. And, as I appreciate it, there was someone else that was kind of sort of around the mix in this risk management stuff, but then they kind of got, I don't know how you would say it. Not excommunicated, maybe excommunicado. They were excommunicado, I think, from risk management or whatever. And they had a really interesting last name, and I think everybody will find it pretty amazing.
Really? What was that last name?
Does
Ring our
anybody
bells.
know? Does anybody in the comments know? Does anybody know?
This could be interesting. Do 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 do. Cue the Jeopardy music. Do 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 do. Ding.
Well, it just so happens, and you may not even remember this, Rex, but that person's last name was Cheatham.
Wait. Cheatham. That's a familiar name. Where have I heard that name before?
Well, it's a name that didn't make it to being the CAO, got kind of squeezed out of that deal, but there was another Cheatham around, and that name kind of got excommunicado, squeezed out, and all I'm wondering is since there was no oversight probably, and the city attorney's office had free reign over risk management at that point, as it would seem, there's probably no telling what all has flowed through there. There's no telling what has flown through there.
And hence my golden goose and golden egg, analogy or saying that, look, we may be over the target all because Brian Hammonds drove by a business that wasn't even in his district. It was in Vince Maggio's district, who apparently didn't know any of this was going on. I mean, what the hell kind of city councilman is that? I mean, we're not talking about filling a pothole in the street. We're talking about completely revamping 2 complete parking lots, and Vince didn't even know what was going on.
Look,
supposedly,
y'all can drive by ye old Acadiana Mortgage on Benton Road and look at my parking lot, and you can damn sure tell I ain't on the risk management plan.
Yeah, so your lovely bride says they must have spilled blood at the Continental. Yes. All right. All right. Let's proceed on forward because this ain't over yet.
Once you get through with your investigation and come back to us with a plan. So I don't see why we cannot move forward with this and put this in place at this time. It's simple.
Council, any questions?
Council, any other questions?
He's just, any questions?
Any questions?
Y'all done?
Tommy's deer in the headlights. And watch
Please?
Tommy, he starts rocking in his chair. I think Tommy legitimately got pissed off. But hey, that's what happens when you come in there unprepared and you're reading a stupid prepared statement that you know nothing about. All right, here we go.
Echo Mr. Hammonds. I amended this ordinance from its original intent to just require a simple notice of the council. I did feel like requiring us to vote on it, the time that it takes would have maybe been too much red tape and would have hindered the administration from quickly and adequately doing their job. So simple notification is all that I required. This is a policy, Mayor Chandler, amongst other government bodies, not only in our area, but throughout the state, including the state of Louisiana, has this similar policy in place of their government bodies here locally also. So this, actually, Bossier City is unique that we don't have anything in place like this. So this would just require simple notification if any funds over $75,000 are going to be expended. If the ordinance also allows that if we need to talk about this, we can do so in executive session. And I will be happy to meet with you when you've complete your review with your attorney. And if your plan has also adequate oversight, I'll be happy to sponsor an ordinance to repeal this. But the city council...
Look, Chris threw him a lifeline right there. Said, hey, look, you come up with some kind of plan. I mean, I don't know why it takes them that long to come up with a plan. But Chris threw him a lifeline there. Said, hey, look, I'll sponsor a bill to repeal it. Or sponsor an ordinance to repeal this ordinance. So he threw him a lifeline there.
does have an obligation to manage the budget and the finances of the city. I mean, we have to approve every person you hire, so why wouldn't we approve when you spend over $75,000? I mean, and so this is just to give us notice so that we know more of what's going on and where the taxpayers' money is going.
Okay.
Any more questions, Council?
I believe the school board, I mean, we upped it. I mean, we were gonna go with what the school board had, and that was a $50,000 threshold. So we actually increased it by $25,000, going with $75,000. Just kind of, looking across the state and here locally, what they have. So we increased it to $75,000.
Any comments, questions from the audience?
All right. Now, get ready for Wes, because this exchange between Wes and Jacobs is actually pretty
Wes Marriott,
extraordinary.
Sobo Live, 211 Shadow Ridge Drive. Mr. President, I just have a few questions concerning this $75,000 limit to be spent by risk management or the city attorney's office prior to council notice. Mr. President, what is the current limit that the risk management office or the city attorney can spend without council notice?
I don't know, Philip, Charles, do you know what it is?
The charter does not require notice of anything.
So hypothetically, the city attorney's office or the risk management office could spend $1 million with no oversight.
I think you're getting crazy there.
Now, Bubba Don's response was, I think you're getting crazy there. No, he just said there's no notification. In other words, basically no limit.
How is that crazy? How is he getting crazy? That's exactly
they just,
what Jacob just acknowledged and said.
Yeah, they just spent a couple of $100,000 or whatever the final bill is going to be on a couple of parking lots.
But if they've been operating that they don't have to do anything, how would Bubba know whether it was crazy or not? How would he even know? He wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, because there's zero council oversight.
That's what's been going on. It's a second rail of government that can spend and do whatever they want to do. And there's no oversight, and they can justify it however they want to justify it. And nobody to look over the shoulder and say yes or no or approve it. There's no check and balance.
See, we're all not crazy, folks. All of us watching this show and all this, we're not conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat people. We're not. You're literally seeing this at the public meeting being acknowledged. We all just point it out and share and comment and call and email your city councilman and drive, hopefully, Tommy crazy sometimes. We're all not the crazy ones here. Wes is not the crazy one. The colonel isn't. It's them. They're the crazy ones.
I mean, do y'all expect there to be no slush funds with no accountability in government? I mean, if that is what the majority, of our community, if that's the kind of government that y'all all envision and believe in, I mean, by all means, let me know, because I want to move. I'm not like you if that's what you believe in. But you just literally had it spelled out for you that that's what you have in Bossier City. The city attorney and the mayor have a slush fund called risk management, where they can spend whatever they want, no limitations, and there's no oversight.
Yeah.
And you just, well,
Look,
you don't
this
even,
is,
you don't,
this
I was
is
gonna
huge,
say, take
folks.
their word for it. I was going to say take their word for it, but you won't even know. You're not going to get a word from them. You'll never know.
All right, here we go. All right, so keep listening carefully to this exchange.
They could.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yeah.
We're self-insured, our general liability claims to $150,000. After that, then the insurance policies kick in, the primary policies, and then we also have excess coverages for general liability.
All right, I want to just point out, I would be remiss if I didn't make fun of the Queen himself right there. Notice he ain't said jack to all this. And I can only imagine what's going through his little pea brain right there. It's like, oh hell, they figured out where the eggs are buried.
Or no, he's like, this is a bunch of damn amateurs. He's like, look at that look. He's like, you bunch of rank amateurs. He's like, I can't get out of here fast enough.
Nah,
He's like,
okay.
good Lord, give me Jimmy Hall back.
Almost spit my tea on the microphone. I think that's going to be the meme. Give me Jimmy Hall back. That scene right there. That shot.
Oh.
All right, here we go.
So once it reaches the retention limit of $150,000, then it's controlled by our insurance companies. And again, we have a policy of insurance that does not allow the insurance company would have the final call.
All right, now, the only place I want to critique Wes just a little bit was right there when Jacob said that. Y'all heard what he said. The insurance kicks in at $150K, right? Oh, so you're saying the insurance, self-insured, but you're saying the insurance kicked in to cover the parking lot? What all happened here? That's what we're trying to figure out. All right, here we go.
Mr. President, you said two different figures there, 150 and 250. The threshold is 250, is that correct?
For general liability, we have a $150,000 threshold. We have significantly higher self-insured retention for workers' comp claims.
Thank you, Mr. President. My second question, the mayor mentioned that he sent each of you an email, Mr. President. Could you share if that was the first time the mayor sent you an email asking you to vote a certain way on an ordinance or resolution?
Ask us to vote? No. Yes, I didn't even read the email, to tell you the truth, so.
Did you just hear the president of the city council say, I didn't even read the mayor's email to tell you the truth? Now, that's comical, but I gotta say, Bubba Don was at least halfway on point, because I don't know if y'all get what Wes is driving at here with these emails. And he's not through. He's like, I give him credit, he was in prosecuting attorney mode today.
Well, there's one acknowledgement of receiving an email, and I'm sure that Chris and Brian acknowledged they received an email. So that would leave Vince Maggio to acknowledge whether he did or didn't receive an email, because the king doesn't get emails, because he doesn't, they just.
Well, he doesn't retain emails,
Yeah,
because it's so difficult to do. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Even if you sue him.
So listen closely, folks, to the rest of this exchange.
I'm sure he's not asking us to vote either way. That's up to us to vote.
Sure, but he just said a moment ago, he sent an email asking to do away with this. And so I was just curious, as a recipient of that email, if you recalled any other time he's asked you to vote or do away with another ordinance or agenda item.
The mayor has never sent me an email asking me how to vote. That's not his job, that's my job.
Sure, the reason I ask this is very pertinent. This is the first time in 4 years I've ever seen the mayor deny an agenda item on the fact sheet. And we went from council comment, there was no commentary, to citizen comment. And I found it very interesting that there was no council comment on the first ever in 4 years of his administration, an agenda item that was denied. I would have thought there would have been some discussion about the peculiarity of that event. Do you recall the mayor ever denying an agenda item?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
I can't believe Bubba Don and Jacob stayed engaged in it, because look, folks, there is no law that says they have to answer anything. They only have to let the public comment. So they could just sit there stone-faced and not say a darn word. I cannot believe, well, actually I can, that they let that exchange go on.
Well, Bubba don't have a dog in it. He don't care no more. Obviously, he does not care. This shit show going on with Tommy, he could care less, but he's also smart enough to know that he don't want to jack with Wes. He doesn't want to get in the middle of this fight, so he wants to come across as being amicable. So I think that's his kind of take on it. But Jacobs, on the other hand, Jacobs thinks he's smarter than everybody else. Jacobs thinks, Screw you all. I
And
don't have to acknowledge you.
let's remind everybody of Jacob's legal prowess and knowledge. He ruled completely wrong on Robert Berry, and the Louisiana Supreme Court overruled him. All right, but I digress. All right, so this is important. They're about to vote on the item that Smith and Hammonds are putting forward on the ordinance, which is to basically cap the Office of Risk Management at $75,000. Which way do
Oh,
you
wait a
think
minute.
everybody's going to vote?
He got the DA right, not having any appetite to go after elected officials. He had that one right.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, he did get that one right. I mean, but that's a given. We already all knew that. I mean, that doesn't take any amount of intelligence to figure that out. All right, here we go. So y'all watch. I want you to say in the comments who you think, or which way you think are they going to vote. Yes for the Chris Smith and Brian Hammond's ordinance. Are they voting yes to cap it, or are they going to vote no? Which way, no cheating for those of you that were there, which way do you think they're going to vote? All right, here we go.
Any more questions from the audience? Council, please cast your vote.
All right. Here we go. Drum roll, please.
Mr. Williams left.
Come on, Bubba Don. You can vote.
Has it popped up for you?
Yeah, there it is. I got it now.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there. Look at that vote, folks. Look, 3-3. Chris Smith moved it. Vince Maggio voted for it. Brian Hammond seconded it. Look at that. I honestly thought maybe Vince is starting to see the bigger picture of things.
You know
Is that what you thought?
He's trying to move forward for North Bossier and District 5. Going to get on board with team, transparency, with team accountability. Light of day.
But
right there, you can see it. He's voting for accountability and transparency.
But alas, let me hit the play button.
Oh, Phyllis,
were deceived.
let me change my vote.
Did you just hear him? He said he wanted to change his vote. It was hard to pick up, so keep listening.
Motion fails.
Apparently, Vince didn't get the memo. That's correct, Rusty.
So it doesn't introduce, because it has to require, the requirement is 4 votes for it to pass either way, and so.
Mr. Maggio asked you to change his vote
Yeah,
today.
change my vote.
What would you like?
Did y'all hear that? Chris Smith, let's Phyllis know. Mr. Maggio asked you to change his vote. Then Maggio affirmatively replies, yeah, I want to change my vote. So, like Rusty said, he either forgot or he just didn't get the memo which way he was supposed to vote. Here we go.
Your vote to be, Mr. Maggio?
Against.
Against?
Mm-hmm.
It still fails.
So, Vince, in all honesty, you should have just shut your mouth. The thing failed either way. But look, Vince's vote moved from this column over to this column. He is just fine with giving the keys to the safe, the keys to the gold bullion under City Hall, letting Jacobs and Ray keep that. Keep those keys.
Yeah, Colonel Crockett, yes, you do get to change your vote after seeing other people's vote, especially if your last name is Maggio.
Yes.
Let's just see which way the wind's blowing, and, we'll go that way. But until the wind changes, then we're not going to go the other way.
Yeah. So, that was that was really the gist of it. Now there was some more exchange between Cassie and Jacobs on Cassie's point. Cassie, what I think I'm going to do is break out that section of video and I'll post it as a transcribed standalone video. But this city council meeting, I mean, I just don't know what to say. And Hammond's reading Tommy the riot act during the meeting. I mean, just talk to him basically like a stepchild. No offense to stepchildren out there.
I don't know either. Keep talking for a second. There was
Okay.
something. Keep talking for a second. There was something I want to find. I gotta look real quick.
Well, all right. So the biggest deal with most of this is, again, and I keep. I know what I want to show. I want to show the Wes's complaint. Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, Wes filed a public information request. I think you sent the thing today, didn't you, Wes? And they like immediately sent back Wes Marriott from Sobo Live, sent him back the email exchange between Tommy and the rest of the councilmen. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Hold on just a second, Mr. Lowrie. And let's see, we don't have any guests anymore, so let me get rid of that real quick. Oh, that. All right, here we go. So here's the email exchange. This is courtesy of Wes Marriott from Sobo Live. Y'all know him in the comments and, well, from the city council meetings and all that. So here we go. This is the second part of it, so I'm going to read it, the second on down. Councilman, I sent the email below to Councilman Smith and Councilman Hammonds earlier today. I spoke with Councilman Smith and asked him to continue the ordinance until May 20th, but he intends to move forward with this ordinance tomorrow. I am respectfully requesting your support to continue this item till May the 20th. This will allow me time to propose a comprehensive policy related to settlements paid by the city and bring an ordinance for you to consider, or for your consideration. All right. Back up. This is a little bit earlier. So you see this was April the 21st at 4:50 or 4:44 p.m. This was at 3:05 p.m. He's basically begging them. Councilman Smith and Hammonds, I am respectfully requesting that you delay your proposed ordinance regarding settlements. I am conducting an internal review of the policies and procedures surrounding settlements. I have retained outside independent counsel to review our current policies. Remember, this is the email Bubba Don claims he didn't read. One of the initial suggestions is the creation of a risk management committee that includes 2 council members, along with the mayor, director of finance, and/or members of the administration. Once I've completed my review and received additional recommendations from outside counsel, I will create a draft of the new policies and procedures and send them to you for your input. This will all go before the council. I appreciate your intent. Blah, 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 blah. I wonder who actually wrote that for Tommy.
I'm going to be nice, and I'm not going to say what was traveling through the synapses of my brain.
All right. So here we go. The complaint has already been filed. So Wes sent this over to us and said he did not mind if we shared it on the show. This was sent this afternoon to Liz Morrell. Says, Dear Attorney General, I'm writing to respectfully request that your office review a possible violation of Louisiana's open meetings law, Louisiana Revised Statute 42:11 through 28, that may have occurred in Bossier City in connection with a council meeting vote taken during today's meeting. During this meeting, the city council considered the ordinance, blah, blah, blah. Mayor, highlighted in yellow there, Mayor Tommy Chandler spoke against the ordinance during the public session and made the following public statement, quoted verbatim. I sent all of you an email asking for you to get rid of this ordinance. The concern here, I'm going down to the red part, the concern here is that the mayor's collective outreach and subsequent silence and alignment of votes may constitute a walking quorum or serial meeting where deliberation among a quorum occurred outside the public view. As you are aware, the open meetings law is clear that communication, even via email, among a quorum of a public body to deliberate on a pending matter may constitute a meeting and must be conducted openly. So again,
But
we're sending more stuff to the Attorney General's office. In this
yeah,
case, Wes is sending it.
and tag the AG's office, but here I can answer this question. They don't investigate walking quorums, Rex. Did you hear me? They don't investigate alleged walking quorums, and even with evidence that goes with them, they don't
Yeah,
do
the
that.
heck with it. Why do they even have? Why does it even have it in the statutes? Why is it in all of the open meetings frequently asked questions posted by not only the legislative auditor's office, but also the Secretary of State's office and the AG's office? They all have their own FAQs on open meetings law. But why do they even put those pesky little things in there if they're not even going to adhere or uphold the law? So,
That is exactly what I was thinking.
Anyway, so there you go, folks. That was the draw. We just can't get away from the city council. They're like, I don't know, this Death Star that keeps drawing us in. Oh, but let me change the subject real quick, and we'll start wrapping up the show because it's nearly 10 o'clock. We haven't done a 3-hour show in a while. Did you know?
Been a while.
Did you know that the Bossier Parish School Board magically, like they found some little magical elves or pixie dust, they magically were able to give the largest pay raise ever to make them competitive with like every other parish except for Red River Parish on teacher salaries? They were able to give these raises without requesting a 40% tax increase. This is even after they effectively roll back the millage. I mean, this is a true miracle, folks.
Now that is a whole lot bigger and longer subject of discussion than what we have the ability to do tonight.
Yes.
Because it deserves more than just the short comments that we're going to make in it. But it is a miracle, and it is an absolutely amazing thing that suddenly they magically have this money. You're absolutely 100% right.
You know what I'm most excited about? So one of the architects of this was, and part of the process was, Creighton Cochran. He's coming to the city council in July, folks. This is like the premiere to a movie coming up. This is going to be a blockbuster. If Creighton was able to help engineer this pay raise, this miraculous pay raise, imagine what he can do on the city council to help straighten all this stuff out with Mr. Hammonds, Mr. Smith, Mr. Cliff Smith, and Miss Deborah Ross. And who else am I leaving out? Is that pretty much everybody? Smith, Hammonds, Deborah, Creighton. I think I got everybody.
Cliff.
I said
Cliff?
Smith and Smith. Mr. Cliff Smith and Chris Smith. Yeah, Smith and Smith.
Whoa. Smith and Hammonds.
Yeah, it's like
It's a high-powered law firm.
Yeah. So just imagine what he'll be able to figure out.
Or Smith, Cochran, and Hammonds.
Yeah.
Smith, Cochran, and Hammond. Could you Smith's, Cochran, and Hammonds. It's a hell of a law firm.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Lowrie. And I'm
I've had enough.
I'm going to be posting some more about the school board stuff. We're going to be talking about that some more, and I don't know what the hell else we'll talk about next week. There's no telling. We may do another show later this week. Who knows if something important comes up.
I do have a couple of guests. You know, hey, this insurance thing is getting good and hot and bothered down there at the legislature, and Joel Gerard, how horrible!
That was
of
the
you to
one.
Forget Joel.
He's my own city councilman. I'm sorry, Joel. I was trying to remember everybody off the top of my head. No notes. Sorry, I skipped Joel.
He needs to come on the show, and he needs to answer for why he's not at top of mind.
Well, look, I got to say, he's an insurance guy. Montgomery's an insurance guy. But I got to say, my gut feeling is that Joel is not looking out for himself. He's looking out for everybody. So I think he'll be a much better influence on the council from an insurance guy's perspective than Queen Monty will. So, there, see,
I'd agree with that.
I tried to say something nice about Joel. He's a good guy. So, at least so far.
And everybody, don't forget to call somebody and message somebody and let everybody know and remind them to vote for the term limits propositions.
Yes.
It's the only thing on the ballot.
It is
This is going to be
early.
easy.
Early voting right now is underway at either the courthouse or the library deal over there. Go early vote. Drag a friend, drag a neighbor if they're in the city limits. Y'all know the drill. Go vote. The election, correct me if I'm wrong, is it May the I'm getting May the 3rd and 5th confused again. It's May the 3rd, correct?
Yeah, and I think that we will see a percentage win on the propositions that is comparable to the national averages. I'm going to guess that it'll be a 75 to 80 percentile win.
Yeah. Okay. Good prediction. I can live with that. All right. Anything else, Mr. Lowrie? Folks, we appreciate everybody watching. Hope y'all enjoyed the information from State Treasurer John Fleming, who is running for U.S. Senate against the Rhino Bill Cassidy. And also hope that you enjoyed the information on carbon capture technology and sequestration with Mr. McCormick. Make sure and write your legislators about that bill and let them know that you support Mr. Danny McCormick's bill.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you all for joining us again, for another week of torture and information.
Yes. We're out of here.
Good night.